Chapter 466. In the palace in Ouyang Yuan's heart, Ningyu had entrusted Fengzi and Lu Wei to him because he trusted him completely. Ningyu was so powerful. If he could tie Ningyu to him completely, Ouyang Yuan believed that he would have at least a 50% chance of becoming the crown prince. Ouyang Yuan secretly made up his mind to ensure the safety of Lu Wei and the rest even if he had to use all his strength. Thank you. Ningyu cupped his fists and said, after I leave Ice Mansion, I'll visit you personally to thank you. Then, Ningyu came to Fengzi's side and said, Fengzi, you know what to do. Understood. Fengzi had always felt guilty about Lu Wei and the rest being trapped in the illusion. Now that there was a chance, he naturally would not miss it. You have to be flexible in everything. Ningyu gave Fengzi a profound look, but didn't say anything else. The two of you, follow me. Seeing that Ningyu was silent, Ouyang Ba said in a deep voice, to Ice Mansion. As he spoke, Ouyang Ba moved and left the box. Ningyu and Li Tongtian looked at each other and followed closely. Let's go to the third Yuan box. After Ningyu and the rest left the room, the sixth prince Ouyang Yuan did not hesitate and immediately walked towards the third Yuan box. Ouyang Yuan did not want to miss this rare opportunity. As long as he could ensure the safety of Lu Wei and the rest until Ningyu came out, then Ningyu would owe him a favor. Knowing Ningyu's character, he would definitely help him when he fought for the title of Crown Prince. Fengzi already felt guilty towards Ningyu, so he naturally followed behind Ouyang Yuan. Ningyu had asked him to help take care of Lu Wei and the rest. In the end, he had come out of the illusion, but Lu Wei and the rest were trapped in the illusion. This time, he had to ensure the safety of Lu Wei and the others no matter what. Sho. Ningyu did not know what Ouyang Yuan and Fengzi were thinking. At this moment, he was following behind Ouyang Ba, shuttling back and forth in the Imperial Palace. The Tianyuan Tower was not located in the Imperial Palace. Therefore, after leaving the Tianyuan Tower, Ningyu, Ouyang Ba, and the others immediately rushed to the Imperial Palace. Not long after, they arrived at the palace. Although the Imperial Palace was relatively large, Ningyu and the others were not slow. After walking for a quarter of an hour, they stopped in front of a luxurious palace. Your Majesty, aren't we going to the Ice Mansion? Why did you bring us here? Li Tongtian seemed to have been to the Ice Mansion before. Therefore, he asked curiously when Ouyang Ba stopped. Hehe, it's getting late. In my opinion, you guys should rest here for the night. I'll send someone to pick you up tomorrow morning, and we'll head to the Ice Mansion together. Ouyang Ba said with a smile. That's reasonable. Li Tongtian mumbled as he lifted his head to look at the darkening sky. Have a good rest tonight. I'll ask these two guards to guard the main hall. You can call them if you need anything. Ouyang Ba pointed at the two guards at the entrance of the main hall. Half-step yin-yang realm. Ningyu followed Ouyang Ba's finger and looked at the entrance of the main hall. He wouldn't have known if he hadn't taken a look, but the moment he did, he was shocked. The two guards at the entrance of the main hall had a cultivation base of half-step yin-yang realm, using half-step yin-yang realm martial artists to guard the entrance. The Imperial Palace was not that powerful. In other words, there must be a reason why Ouyang Ba was doing this. Rest early. Someone will fetch you tomorrow morning. Ouyang Ba smiled at Ningyu and the others, before he left without looking back. Li Tongtian, I think you've been to the Ice Mansion before. Looking at Ouyang Ba's back, Ningyu turned around and asked in a deep voice, Is the Ice Mansion far from here? Let's talk inside. Li Tongtian did not answer Ningyu's question immediately. Instead, he gave Ningyu a look and walked into the main hall. Ningyu understood and didn't stay in front of the hall. He also entered the hall. The main hall was luxuriously decorated, but Ningyu and Li Tongtian did not have the time to admire it. They randomly picked a room and went in. Creak. After closing the door, Ningyu and Li Tongtian unleashed their soul energy and carefully checked the room. A moment later, Ningyu and Li Tongtian withdrew their soul energy at the same time. No problem. Almost at the same time, the two of them spoke. In fact, it was no wonder that Ningyu and the others were being cautious. Ouyang Ba said they were going to the Ice Mansion, But he changed his mind and brought them to this luxurious palace. To be honest, there were plenty of places to receive guests in the palace, but this luxurious palace did not look like a place to receive guests. Therefore, it was never wrong for Ningyu and the others to be cautious. Ningyu, I've been to the ice mansion before, but that was a few years ago. After confirming that the room was safe, Li Tongtian said, to be precise, the ice mansion is very far away from this palace. What do you mean? Ningyu raised his eyebrows and asked. We're on the west side of the palace, while the ice mansion is on the east side. Li Tongtian said in a deep voice, I'm not sure why the emperor brought us here. East and west, what the hell is the emperor up to? Ningyu took a deep breath and his expression turned serious. There's always a way out. Ningyu, I'm impressed by you. Oh no. Li Tongtian shrugged and was about to say something, but his eyes dimmed and he pushed Ningyu away. Boom. In the next moment, a beam of cold light descended from the sky and hit the ground between Ningyu and Li Tongtian. Crack. The beam of cold light was extremely powerful. The bluestone floor was instantly blasted into a huge hole. The hole was more than a meter deep. Such power was truly terrifying. Swoosh. However, before Ningyu and Li Tongtian could exclaim in shock, they saw a figure descending from the sky above the room. This figure was covered in a black robe and his face could not be seen at all. Yin-yang stage. Middle stage. Feeling the powerful aura emanating from the black-robed warrior, Ningyu's heart sank. Ningyu was well aware of his strength. If he used all his trump cards, he could go up against a peak early yin-yang realm warrior. However, against a mid-yin-yang realm warrior, especially one as powerful as the black-robed warrior before him, there was almost no chance of victory. The black-robed warrior before him was very strong. At the very least, he was much stronger than Tu Zhon. Back then, even Ningyu and the Dark Emperor were no match for Tu Zhon. Therefore, to defeat this black-robed warrior before him was harder than reaching the heavens. In contrast to Ningyu's astonishment, Li Tongtian's face was no less astonished. In fact, he was even more astonished. His strength was on par with Ningyu's, perhaps even slightly weaker than Ningyu's. Even Ningyu was no match for this black-robed warrior, much less him. Keek, a peak primal core warrior and a late-stage martial artist. Not bad at all. Chapter 467. Chapter 467, Robbery. Who are you? Ningyu tried his best to calm himself down as he shouted. Ningyu knew better than anyone else that the black-robed cultivator was at the intermediate stage of the yin-yang realm. He was no match for him if he fought him head-on. The only thing he could do now was to stall for time and let Li Tongtian try to communicate with the outside world. Don't waste your energy. I've already set up a restriction in this room. With the strength of Li Tongtian's soul, he won't be able to break it. The black-robed cultivator seemed to know what Ningyu was planning. He smiled and said, if you know what's good for you, surrender now and hand over all your treasures and elixirs. As long as I'm satisfied, I can spare your lives. Robbery? Ningyu and Li Tongtian exclaimed at the same time, feeling incredulous. This was the royal palace and security was tight. The black-robed cultivator had snuck into the palace without anyone knowing and even set up a soul restriction in the room. It was definitely not as simple as robbery. What nonsense are you talking about? You, hurry up and hand over the storage ring on your wrist. The black-robed cultivator seemed a little impatient as he said coldly to Ningyu, otherwise, I'll let you know why flowers are so red. I see. Hearing the black-robed cultivator's words, Ningyu's heart skipped a beat as he vaguely understood what was going on. The black-robed cultivator's robbery was fake, but he wanted the storage ring on his wrist. Moreover, this was the royal palace. A frightening thought surfaced in Ningyu's mind. The black-robed cultivator took orders from the emperor and was sent by the emperor. The more he thought about it, the more Ningyu felt that it was possible. In the end, his expression turned completely cold. This was the royal palace. It was not that there were no cultivators who could come and go as they pleased. However, all of them were extremely powerful. At the very least, the black-robed cultivator before him could not do it. Why are you dawdling and forcing me to do it myself? Seeing that Ningyu was unmoved, the black-robed cultivator rose from the ground and charged towards Ningyu. Oh no! The sudden movement of the black-robed cultivator caused Ningyu's expression to change drastically. Without much time to think, he immediately retreated. At the same time, in the process of retreating, Ningyu took out the broken soul sword and slashed out a sword ray with a backhand. Insignificant skill. The black-robed cultivator obviously did not put this sword light in his eyes. With a casual flick of his hand, a cold light flew out and collided with Ningyu's sword light. Kai Kai. When the two collided, the result was not unexpected. The sword light that Ningyu slashed out was instantly shattered. The cold light that the black-robed cultivator flung out was attacking Ningyu at an astonishing speed. Solitaire. At the critical moment, Ningyu injected the essence energy in his sea of consciousness into the absolute soul sword and slashed out a shocking sword wave. Kai. The sword wave and the cold light collided, and a crisp sound rang out. Then, both of them disappeared from the world. Wow, you're not bad. You managed to block 30% of my strength in 2 moves. You're not simple indeed. Seeing that Ningyu had blocked his cold light, the black-robed cultivator did not continue attacking. Instead, his lips curled into a sinister smile. You better be prepared, because I'm going to use my full strength. You're too noisy. If you want to fight, let's fight. Why do you have so much nonsense to say? Just then, Li Tongtian snorted coldly and interrupted the black-robed cultivator. He said in a deep voice, "Don't be fooled by your mid-stage yin-yang realm cultivation. If Ningyu and I join forces, we might be able to take you on, ha ha ha." Even though he was interrupted, the black-robed cultivator was not angry. After laughing maniacally, he said coldly, "I'd like to see how you're going to fight me together. Ningyu, there's no point in holding back now. Why don't we both use our trump cards and fight this yin-yang intermediate stage cultivator today?" Li Tongtian hollered at Ningyu and took out a pill from his robes. In a flash, Li Tongtian popped the elixir into his mouth. Crack. The next moment, a cracking sound could be heard from within Li Tongtian's body, as if something had been unlocked. Following that, Li Tongtian's aura shot up like a rocket, soaring upward. Pinnacle of primal core, half a step to yin-yang stage, early yin-yang stage. In a short span of time, Li Tongtian's cultivation had shot up from the pinnacle of primal core to the early yin-yang stage. This speed of advancement was truly terrifying. Glancing at Ningyu, Li Tongtian's hands began to vibrate in a strange rhythm. In the end, all the yuan qi in the room seemed to be affected, making a buzzing sound. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. In the next moment, a fist wrapped in violent yuan qi shot out and smashed towards the black-robed cultivator's head. Yuan qi surged and was exceptionally cold. You overestimate yourself. Faced with the fist that was approaching him, the black-robed cultivator snorted coldly and threw out a punch. It collided with Li Tongtian's fist. Bam! The two fists collided and the two figures retreated in unison. Li Tongtian retreated all the way to the edge of the room and only stabilized himself when his back hit the wall. On the other hand, the black-robed cultivator only retreated 3 steps. At this moment, it was clear who had the upper hand. Although Li Tongtian had used the elixir to raise his cultivation to the early yin-yang stage, in terms of raw power, he was still far from the black-robed cultivator. They were not even on the same level. Solitaire. How could Ningyu let Li Tongtian fight alone? With a flick of his sleeves, the red demon sword appeared. Following that, the yuan qi in Ningyu's mind surged and flowed into the red demon sword. When the yuan qi in the red demon sword reached its limit, Ningyu stabbed out. In an instant, a shocking sword wave formed and slashed at the black-robed cultivator's head. Initially, I only wanted to take your Dharma treasures and elixirs. Since you guys are seeking death, don't blame me. Li Tongtian and Ningyu's continuous attacks seemed to have angered the black-robed cultivator, causing him to fly into a rage. After his rage subsided, he launched a torrential attack. Swoosh! The black-robed cultivator moved quickly and appeared in front of Ningyu in the blink of an eye. His fist carried a violent gust of yuan qi and slammed towards Ningyu's chest. If Ningyu was unlucky enough to be hit by this punch, he would be crippled even if he did not die. This was because the black-robed cultivator had used 80% of his strength in this punch. 80% of a yin-yang intermediate stage cultivator's strength was enough to kill an ordinary early yin-yang stage cultivator. Damn it! Seeing that the black-robed cultivator's fist was getting closer and closer, Ningyu cursed under his breath. Then, he gathered all the yuan qi in his mind to his wrist, intending to fight head-on with the black-robed cultivator. He, a late true martial realm cultivator dares to fight head-on with me? You really overestimate yourself. Oh no. Ningyu's actions made the black-robed cultivator smile. However, before he could finish the word strength, his expression changed and he retreated immediately. Swoosh. However, the black-robed cultivator's retreat was obviously slower. Chapter 468. Out of the blue bam. The speed of Cold Gleam was extremely fast. It arrived in front of the black-robed cultivator almost instantaneously. Under the astonished gaze of the black-robed cultivator, it slammed into his chest. With a dull thud, the black-robed cultivator's body fell backward. Swoosh. After knocking the black-robed cultivator back unexpectedly, Cold Gleam turned around and landed steadily in front of Ningyu. A dog. Seeing Cold Gleam's true appearance, Li Tongqian's mouth was agape in disbelief. He had not expected a black dog to suddenly jump out of Ningyu's storage ring. The most ridiculous thing was that this black dog had actually knocked back the black-robed cultivator. Although the black-robed cultivator did not seem to be in any serious trouble, the fact that it could knock him back was enough to show how powerful this black dog was. Dark Emperor. Li Tongqian did not recognize the black dog in front of him, but Ningyu was very familiar with it. Not long ago, the Dark Emperor was bold and daring enough to devour 200,000 Supreme Essence crystals. Initially, Ningyu thought that the Dark Emperor would need at least a month to completely refine the 200,000 Supreme Essence crystals in his body. Who would have thought that the Dark Emperor would refine all the Supreme Essence crystals in his body so quickly? He was indeed the king of the Heaven-Devouring Hound clan, the purple-gold Heaven-Devouring Hound. Ningyu, long time no see. I've missed you. The Dark Emperor was still the same as he raised his proud head and said, Who are you? No, what kind of dog are you? Just then, the black-robed cultivator was enraged and berated. If he had been knocked back by a yin-yang realm cultivator, he would not have said anything. But to be knocked back by a dog, he could not tolerate it no matter what. Furthermore, he was a mid-stage yin-yang realm cultivator while the black dog in front of him was only at the pinnacle primal core realm. Holy F***CK, how dare you say that about your grandfather? I can't tolerate it. What the Dark Emperor hated the most was others calling him a dog, so when he heard the black-robed martial artist's words, he immediately cursed and said, Today, I'll let you see the strength of your royal grandfather. The moment the word strength fell, the Dark Emperor leaped forward and used its huge dog claws to grab at the black-robed martial artist's head. You dare to call yourself Imperial Grandfather in front of me? Fine, I'll have a change of taste today. The black-robed cultivator clearly did not place the Emperor in his eyes. Not only was he not nervous, his lips curled up into an evil smile as he said, Eat dog meat, drink dog soup. Eat your grandpa. The Dark Sovereign was very fast. In the blink of an eye, he appeared before the black-robed cultivator and swung his huge claws down heavily. Whoosh! How could the black-robed martial artist allow the Dark Emperor to hit him? At the critical moment, his body quickly dodged to the side, barely dodging the Dark Emperor's fatal blow. Following that, the black-robed martial artist and the Dark Sovereign started fighting. Ningyu, this dog seems to be on good terms with you. On the other side of the room, Li Tongqian pointed at the Dark Emperor who was fighting with the black-robed martial artist and frowned. He is very strong, but compared to the black-robed martial artist, he is still lacking. Don't call him dog, call him the Dark Emperor from now on, Ningyu said hurriedly. What a joke, the Dark Emperor had a bad temper. If he knew that Li Tongqian called him that, Li Tongqian would probably not have a good time. Dark Emperor? Li Tongqian was a little embarrassed and hesitated. That's right, his name is the Dark Emperor. That's what you'll call him from now on. Ningyu nodded and then turned his gaze to the battlefield. After refining 200,000 supreme primal crystals, The Dark Emperor's cultivation had advanced from the late primal core stage to the peak of the primal core stage. Although it was only a small increase, it was still a huge increase in the Dark Emperor's combat power. When he was in the late primal core stage, the Dark Emperor could fight and even kill a martial artist in the early stage of the yin-yang realm. However, against a martial artist in the middle stage of the yin-yang realm, he could only run away. But now, the Dark Emperor could fight with the black-robed martial artist in the middle stage of the yin-yang realm. At the very least, the black-robed martial artist would not be able to defeat the Dark Emperor in a short period of time. Zhao Liang, there seems to be some movement inside. At the same time, outside the palace, two martial artists in the half-step yin-yang realm were discussing. Among them, the slightly taller martial artist hesitated. Should we go in and take a look? Look at what? The Emperor personally said that unless the martial artist inside gives a specific signal, no matter what we hear, we are not to leave this place. The martial artist called Zhao Liang said coldly, Cao Qi, don't say that I didn't warn you. The Emperor is very concerned about this matter. If we mess it up, no one will be able to bear the consequences. I'm just saying, there's no need to make a fuss, Cao Qi said. Zhao Liang, what is the Emperor trying to do? One of the two martial artists is at the peak of the primal core stage and the other is at the late stage of the true martial realm. Then, Cao Qi lowered his voice and continued, as long as we capture the two of them and interrogate them, everything will be solved. Foolish, foolish, foolish beyond belief. Zhao Liang scolded, don't tell me that the Emperor hasn't thought of what you can think of. Do your job honestly. I don't want to be punished by the Emperor because of you. Bang. While Zhao Liang and Cao Qi were arguing, the Dark Emperor seized the opportunity to force the black-robed martial artist back and landed beside Ningyu. This is so hard to deal with. Ningyu, can't you save some effort? You actually offended a martial artist in the middle stage of the yin-yang realm. The Dark Emperor was panting heavily. Obviously, he did not have the upper hand in the fight with the black-robed martial artist. Otherwise, given his nature, he would have mocked the black-robed martial artist long ago. Damn dog, take another move from me. Before Ningyu could reply to the Dark Emperor, the black-robed martial artist on the other side flew into a rage and charged at the Dark Emperor once again. F***CK, is there no end to this? The Dark Emperor gritted his teeth, but he knew that with his strength, it would be difficult to defeat the black-robed martial artist. Suddenly, Ningyu rolled his eyes and sent a voice transmission to the Dark Emperor. Dark Emperor, stop the black-robed martial artist and buy me at least 3 minutes. Damn it, let me try. After cursing under his breath, the Dark Emperor leaped up and charged at the black-robed martial artist. Li Tongtian, hurry up and help the Dark Emperor while the effects of the drug in your body are still there. Remember, no matter what, you have to buy me 3 minutes. Ningyu's tone was unquestionable, and Li Tongtian was subtly affected. For some reason, Li Tongtian did not have any doubts. He immediately rose from the ground and joined the battle. The Dark Emperor's strength was only slightly lower than the black-robed martial artist and he could hold on for 3 minutes. Now that Li Tongtian was here, not to mention 3 minutes, he could even hold on for 10 minutes. While the Dark Emperor and the others were fighting, Ningyu's expression turned serious. Because what he was about to do next might be a little crazy. Even if he succeeded, he might be hunted down by the Emperor. However, he did it without hesitation. Because if he did not do it, the 3 of them might die here today. Whether I can kill the black-robed martial artist with a single sword depends on this. Chapter 469. Hit. Inside the room, the Dark Emperor and Li Tongtian did not hold back at all. In order to hold off the black-robed martial artist for 3 minutes, both of them used their full strength. Rumble. Faced with the strong attacks of the Dark Emperor and Li Tongtian, the black-robed martial artist did not dare to be careless. He immediately used all his strength. The black-robed martial artist was a mid-stage yin-yang realm martial artist after all. His full strength caused the Dark Emperor and Li Tongtian to retreat several feet. If you know what's good for you, get out of my way. Otherwise, the black-robed martial artist said sinisterly. However, before he could finish his sentence, the Dark Emperor said coldly, "Old man, how dare you be so arrogant in front of your grandfather? Why don't you look at yourself in the mirror? For me. You can be forgiven for your sins. Hearing the Dark Emperor's words, the black-robed martial artist snorted coldly. Yuan Qi surged from his body and a strong aura pressed down on the Dark Emperor. Hihi, it's just a small trick. The Dark Emperor was least afraid of aura pressure. It could be said that ever since he advanced to the pinnacle of the primal core realm, he was completely immune to the aura pressure from martial artists below the advanced yin-yang realm. The black-robed martial artist was only of the intermediate yin-yang realm. How could his aura pressure have any effect on the Dark Emperor? Looks like you won't give up until you see your coffin. Forget it, I will do justice on behalf of the heavens and kill you, arrogant dog. The Dark Emperor's words obviously agitated the black-robed martial artist. His expression turned cold and his aura surged once again. Li Tongtian, take a few steps back. I want to see if this old man can defeat me in aura alone. The Dark Emperor waved his hand at Li Tongtian and said calmly, all you have to do is stay here obediently and don't go anywhere. Understood. Li Tongtian was not a fool. He knew the difference between him and the black-robed martial artist. Even though he had advanced to the early yin-yang realm with the elixir, he could not even last 3 moves against the black-robed martial artist. Perhaps Li Tongtian's best choice now was to deal with the myriad of changes by remaining unchanging. TSK. Just then, the black-robed martial artist's aura surged to the limit and pressed down on the Dark Emperor. How comfortable. Under the pressure of the black-robed martial artist's powerful aura, not only did the Dark Emperor not feel uncomfortable, he even revealed an expression of enjoyment. At the same time, he provoked the black-robed martial artist. Old man, did you not eat? Increase your aura a little more and let your grandfather enjoy it. Damn it. When had the black-robed martial artist ever suffered such humiliation? First, he was repelled by the black dog in front of him, and now he was ridiculed. An aunt could endure it, but an uncle couldn't. The black-robed cultivator cursed in a low voice. He quickly retracted his aura and rushed towards the Dark Emperor. Since he could not suppress the black dog in front of him with his aura, the black-robed cultivator simply unleashed a powerful attack. He wanted to defeat or even kill the Dark Emperor with brute force. Good timing. The Dark Emperor turned his head to look at Ning Yu, who was still busy. Gritting his teeth, he advanced instead of retreating, clashing with the black-robed cultivator once more. A minute had passed after the commotion just now. In other words, the Dark Emperor only needed to hold on for 2 more minutes, and Ning Yu's preparations would be complete. The Dark Emperor was confident that he could hold on for 2 minutes. Hiss, hiss. Ning Yu did not pay attention to the fight between the Dark Emperor and the black-robed cultivator. At this moment, he quickly extended his palm and held the red demon sword in his hand. At the same time, the soul power in Ning Yu's body surged out and flowed towards the red demon sword through his palm. Subsequently, Ning Yu activated 4 illusory golden cores, intending to channel all the vitality within them into the red demon sword. In the first minute, Ning Yu's peak rank 5 soul power in his body flowed into the red demon sword through his palm, with the exception of some that remained in his body. In the second minute, all the vitality within the 4 illusory golden cores flowed into the red demon sword. Swoosh. In the third minute, Ning Yu rose from the ground with the red demon sword in his hand and joined the battle instantly. F***CK, Ning Yu, what are you doing? Why are you only here now? Seeing Ning Yu charging over, the Dark Emperor could not help but curse. Initially, he thought that holding off the black-robed cultivator for 2 minutes would be a piece of cake. Who would have thought that the black-robed cultivator would become more and more courageous as he fought? By the third minute, he was almost unable to hold on. Fortunately, Ning Yu joined the battle in time and helped him relieve some of the pressure. Otherwise, he would definitely be severely injured. Cut the crap. You attack from the top and I'll attack from the bottom. You must give it your all. Ning Yu did not want to waste any time and sent a voice transmission to the Dark Emperor. Try your best to attract the black-robed cultivator's attention. Whether or not we can defeat him depends on this. How confident are you? The Dark Emperor's heart skipped a beat and he asked hurriedly. 50%, Ning Yu replied in a deep voice. 50%, The Dark Emperor's expression changed slightly and he said coldly, "That's enough. Ningyu, you must not disappoint me." Swoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, the Dark Emperor moved instantly and used his agile tail to sweep at the black-robed cultivator's head. At the same time, Ningyu's eyes turned cold. Wielding the red demon sword, he slashed at the black-robed cultivator's lower body. Swoosh. On the other side, Li Tongtian gritted his teeth and joined the battle as well. There were still 3 minutes before the medicinal effects in his body dissipated. In other words, he could only maintain the early-stage yin-yang realm for 3 minutes. Once the 3 minutes were up, he would return to his original state and his cultivation might even drop to a freezing point. 3 minutes was not short, but it was not long either. At the very least, Li Tongtian had to make good use of these 3 minutes to ensure that he could help Ningyu and the Dark Emperor. Scram. However, Li Tongtian was met with tragedy the moment he joined the battle. As the saying went, pick the weakest persimmon to crush. This was the black-robed cultivator's strategy. Seeing that Li Tongtian had joined the battle, he forced Ningyu and the Dark Emperor away. Then, he threw a punch that landed squarely on Li Tongtian's chest. Bang! The immense force caused Li Tongtian to retreat to the edge of the room before he could stabilize himself. Luckily, he had gathered all his yuan qi on his chest at the critical moment. Otherwise, this move from the black-robed cultivator would have been enough to make him suffer. After forcing Li Tongtian back with a single move, the black-robed cultivator was extremely satisfied and was slightly distracted. Now's the time! After the ruckus from Li Tongtian, Ningyu's eyes widened in surprise. The next moment, he took advantage of the short second that the black-robed cultivator was distracted to increase his speed to the maximum, even at the cost of burning his remaining soul power. Not good. 1 second was a very short period of time. The black-robed cultivator quickly realized that Ningyu was charging towards him with a red flying sword in his hand. However, Ningyu was too fast. By the time he reacted, Ningyu was already beside him. Furthermore, the red demon sword in his hand pierced forward. Poof! The sound of a flying sword piercing through flesh rang out in the room. Swoosh! Chapter 470. Tang Guding. At the critical moment, a small flying sword flew out from Ningyu's arms and collided with the cold gleam that the black-robed cultivator had sent out. A crisp sound rang out and a small green flying sword was sent crashing to the ground. On the other hand, there was a small red flying sword in Ningyu's hand. Good sword. The flying sword in Ningyu's hand was no ordinary flying sword, but the good sword of the Red Fiend sword. Fortunately, I kept the good sword in my arms. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Although he had blocked the black-robed cultivator's green flying sword, Ningyu still felt a lingering fear. If he had not kept the good sword on a whim, he might have been killed by the black-robed cultivator. Ha ha ha, old fart, to think that you would have such a day. Seeing the black-robed cultivator being struck by the Red Fiend sword, the Dark Emperor laughed loudly and said, "Now that you've fallen into my hands, I'll make you wish you were dead. P2E. You think you can kill me with just the few of you? How naive." The black-robed cultivator did not seem to understand his current situation. He spat and said sinisterly, "I can leave this room anytime I want." Swoosh. The moment he said that, the black-robed cultivator immediately leaped up, wanting to escape from the top of the room. When he came, the black-robed cultivator had descended from the top of the room. Now that he was leaving, he naturally wanted to leave from there. Don't you think it's a little too late to think of escaping now? How could the Dark Emperor give the black-robed cultivator a chance to leave the room? In the next moment, the Dark Emperor rose from the ground and turned into an afterimage. In the blink of an eye, he appeared in front of the black-robed cultivator, blocking his path. Damn it! Looking at the Dark Emperor who had suddenly appeared in front of him, the black-robed cultivator's expression turned extremely cold. After cursing inwardly, the black-robed cultivator's fist brought with it a violent yuan qi gale as it slammed toward the Dark Emperor's head. The black-robed cultivator's punch was extremely powerful. If the Dark Emperor was unlucky enough to be hit, he would be crippled even if he did not die. Not good. The The Dark Emperor had not expected the black-robed cultivator to be able to execute such a powerful move after being struck in the chest by the red demon sword. His expression changed drastically, and without any time to think, he immediately retreated. Ha ha ha. You are indeed a retarded dog. To think that I tricked you so easily. In the future, we will have. Seeing the Dark Emperor retreat, the black-robed cultivator instantly retracted his fist. Furthermore, the black-robed martial warriors first laughed loudly at the Dark Emperor, then raised his speed to the limit, wanting to escape through the passageway above the room. However, before the black-robed cultivator could reach the entrance of the passageway, he heard Ningyu's words ringing in his ears. You can use the endoscopy technique to look at your sea of knowledge and see if it's different from before. Hearing Ningyu's words, the black-robed cultivator's expression darkened. He said coldly, "Trying to play tricks in front of me? You don't have to." The black-robed cultivator originally thought that Ningyu was trying to blow him up. Who would have thought that as he spoke, he would taste something sweet in his throat and spit out a mouthful of dark red blood? You. What did you do to me? The black-robed cultivator was indeed a middle-stage yin-yang realm cultivator. After a short moment of shock, he immediately calmed down. Hehe, I didn't do anything to you. I just left some fun things in your sea of knowledge. Ningyu laughed. Fun things? The black-robed cultivator was slightly stunned as he asked. That's right, just some fun things. Ningyu nodded and said, soul power and essence chi. Poochie. Hearing the first half of Ningyu's sentence, the black-robed cultivator did not feel anything. However, when he heard the second half of Ningyu's sentence, he could not help but spit out another mouthful of blood. If not for the black-robed cultivator stabilizing his body in time, he might have fallen from the sky. Ningyu, why are you talking nonsense with him? Hurry up and kill him. The Dark Emperor had long wanted to kill the black-robed cultivator, so he was clearly a little impatient. There's no hurry. I'll ask him a few questions first. Ningyu waved his hand, indicating for the Dark Emperor not to cause trouble. Then, he said to the black-robed cultivator, tell me the person who ordered you to do this, and I can spare your life. I, Tang Ji-yu, have always been a lone ranger. The black-robed cultivator said in a deep voice. So, your name is Tang Ji-yu. Ningyu said indifferently, since you're not willing to tell me who ordered you to do this, I can only kill you. You dare to kill me? Tang Ji-yu said coldly, this is the palace. If I die here for no reason, you won't be able to explain it to His Majesty. Ningyu shrugged and said, although this is the palace, this room is where Li Tongtian and I rest. You barged in for no reason. Even if I kill you, His Majesty won't say anything. After saying that, Ningyu gave the Dark Emperor a look, indicating for him to kill Tang Ji-yu. The Dark Emperor had been waiting for this moment. After receiving Ningyu's approval, he leaped up and charged towards Tang Ji-yu. Seeing the Dark Emperor approaching him, Tang Gu's expression turned uglier and uglier. Even his heart sank to the bottom. He had Ningyu's soul power and vitality in his consciousness. If he dared to act rashly, Ningyu would be the first to not let him off. However, if he didn't escape, he would become a live target and there was a high chance that he would be killed by the Dark Emperor. Swish. Swish. Just as Tang Ji-yu was at a loss of what to do, two figures swept in from the passage above the room. After these two figures appeared, without saying a word, they immediately launched a powerful attack at the Dark Emperor. F***CK. Feeling the two powerful attacks coming at him, the Dark Emperor couldn't help but curse and quickly retreated. Bang! Bang! However, the Dark Emperor's attention was completely on Tang Ji-yu. The sudden appearance of these two martial artists was clearly out of his expectations. The outcome was obvious. The Dark Emperor was hit in the chest by two fists and his body fell backward like a kite with a broken string. Swoosh! Ningyu reacted quickly and caught the Dark Emperor just as he was about to fall to the ground. In the next moment, Ningyu released his perception and began to check on the Dark Emperor's injuries. When he saw the condition of the Dark Emperor's body, Ningyu's expression turned completely gloomy. Although the Dark Emperor's injuries weren't fatal, he would need at least a few days to recover to his peak. How could Ningyu tolerate the Dark Emperor suffering such a serious injury as soon as he woke up? Moreover, Ningyu was very familiar with the two martial artists in front of him. They were none other than the two gatekeepers at the entrance of this luxurious palace. Half-step yin-yang realm cultivation. Ningyu, this is the emperor. After severely injuring the Dark Emperor, Zhao Liang pointed at Tang Jiyu and said loudly, "Ah." However, before he could finish his sentence, he heard a scream. When the scream fell into Zhao Liang's ears, his eyes widened and revealed a look of fear. He turned his body slightly and saw Tang Jiyu beside him holding his head with an extremely painful expression. Chapter 471. The Ninth Prince. Well, you came at the right time. He trespassed into the palace and has been subdued by Li Tongtian and I. Ningyu pointed at Tang Jiyu and asked, "Should we kill him on the spot?" This, Zhao Liang's mouth was slightly agape, a little confused. He and Cao Qi had been guarding the entrance of the main hall with their attention focused on the inside of the hall, waiting for a specific signal from Tang Jiyu. But after a long time, they did not even hear a sound, let alone a signal. Just as they were feeling puzzled, an anxious voice rang in their minds. "Go to the room where Ningyu and Li Tongtian are and save Tang Jiyu." Hearing this voice, Zhao Liang and Cao Qi did not dare to delay and immediately entered the main hall. Fortunately, they came in time and forced the black dog to retreat, otherwise Tang Jiyu would have been killed by the black dog. Originally, they thought that after saving Tang Jiyu, they could smoothly take him away. Who would have thought that Ningyu would appear out of nowhere, first attacking Tangu's soul power, and then asking them a question? "Ningyu, this is..." Zhao Liang continued after a short moment of confusion. "I know, he is a cultivator who trespassed into the palace." Ningyu interrupted Zhao Liang again and said calmly, "Fine, since you do not want to do it, I will do it for you." Swoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, Ningyu turned into a shadow and appeared in front of Tang Jiyu in an instant. In the next moment, Ningyu raised his palm and slapped Tangu's face. "Stop! How dare you! Don't touch him!" Seeing Ningyu's strong attack, Zhao Liang, Cao Qi, and even Tang Jiyu shouted, "Slap!" However, their shouts did not affect Ningyu. Ningyu's palm landed heavily on Tangu's face. In an instant, 5 blood-red palm prints appeared on Tangu's face, and traces of blood seeped out. "Right, trespassing into the palace is a capital offense. Do you want to do it, or do you want me to do it?" After slapping Tangu's face, Ningyu seemed to have thought of something and said directly, "Forget it. I'll help him to the end." However, before Zhao Liang and Cao Qi could answer, Ningyu continued, "I'll deal with this yin-yang intermediate stage Tang Jiyu for you." As soon as the word go left his mouth, Ningyu's eyes flashed with coldness. Immediately after, he rose from the ground. While controlling Tangu's sea of consciousness, his fist contained a berserk fluctuation of yuan qi as it ruthlessly smashed towards Tangu's head. This punch of Ningyu's was extremely powerful and heavy. With Tangu's current state, if he was unlucky enough to be hit in the head, he would most likely die. Haha, where it is possible to forgive, one should forgive. How about young hero Ning sell me some face and spare Tang Jiyu? However, before Ningyu's fist could land on Tangu's body, a faint laughter sounded out from outside the room. Creak. Then, the door was slowly pushed open, and a young martial artist walked in with a smile. Ningyu raised his eyebrows. His fist stopped 3 centimeters away from Tangu's forehead. Ninth Prince. Ningyu didn't know this young martial artist, but Zhao Liang and Cao Qi clearly knew him. Among the many princes, there were 2 most mysterious princes. One was the 9th prince, and the other was the 13th prince. Among them, the 13th prince was often not in the capital, so very few people knew his specific cultivation and strength. However, the 9th prince was different. Among the many princes, in terms of martial arts strength, he could be ranked in the top 3. "You're Ningyu?" After entering the room, the 9th prince's gaze fell on Ningyu. He quickly arrived at Ningyu's side. He first looked Ningyu up and down, and then faintly said, "Tang Jiyu trespassing here was completely unintentional. You're the 9th prince." Before Ningyu could speak, Li Tongtian said in a low voice, "If not for the fact that Ningyu and I are strong, we would have been killed by Tang Jiyu long ago." Don't you think it's a little ridiculous that you're trying to save Tang Jiyu just because of an unintentional act? Li Tongtian was filled with anger. It was one thing for him to be bullied by Tang Jiyu. After all, he was not strong enough and had no choice. However, the ninth prince's cultivation was the same as his, at the peak of the primal core stage. Why was he acting so tough? In other words, where did he get his courage from? Li Tongtian, your strength is SOSO. The ninth prince glanced at Li Tongtian with a look of disdain. Let me tell you now, why do I have the right to say such things? Whoosh. With that, the ninth prince dashed forward and appeared in front of Li Tongtian in the blink of an eye. At the same time, the ninth prince threw a punch at Li Tongtian's chest at an astonishing speed. Oh no! Looking at the fist that was getting bigger in his eyes, Li Tongtian's face was filled with fear. When he was at his peak, he naturally would not be afraid of the ninth prince. In fact, he would even spar with the ninth prince. But now, the effects of the drug had worn off and his strength had dropped to a freezing point. It could be said that the ninth prince only needed to use 10% of his strength to easily defeat him. Bam! However, just as Li Tongtian was about to lose all hope, Ningyu suddenly retreated from Tangu's side and appeared in front of him in an instant. Furthermore, Ningyu threw a punch that collided with the ninth prince's fist. The two fists collided and a dull thud could be heard. Immediately, the ninth prince's expression changed drastically as he retreated quickly. Ninth prince, aren't you a little too arrogant to attack me just because of a disagreement? After repelling the ninth prince with one move, Ningyu's tone was cold. Li Tongtian and I are good friends. By attacking him in front of me, you are clearly looking down on me. Also, Tang Jiyu launched a strong attack on Li Tongtian and I. If we had not used all our trump cards, we would have been killed by him by now. You want us to let him go with just a few words? That's too casual. At the very least, you should give me a reason to let Tang Jiyu go. Ha ha ha. Ningyu's string of words landed in the ninth prince's ears. He was slightly taken aback before he burst into laughter. After laughing, the ninth prince's expression turned completely cold. You and Li Tongtian are good friends, and I am also good friends with Tang Jiyu. I wonder if this reason is sufficient. Not very. Ningyu shook his head. If you still can't give me a good reason, I can only send Tang Jiyu on his way. Hihi, I don't have any other reasons. If you want to kill Tang Jiyu, you can try. At this moment, the ninth prince had surprisingly calmed down. He was terrifyingly calm. He smiled and said, "Don't say I didn't warn you. Tang Jiyu is not only good friends with me, but also with my father." You talk too much. Although the Dark Emperor was severely injured, it was still very easy for him to deal with the powerless Tang Jiyu. The ninth prince's laughable reason infuriated the Dark Emperor. He growled before he rose from the ground and charged toward Tang Jiyu. Bam! Chapter 472. How dare you? Wait a moment. Seeing that the Dark Emperor wanted to kill Tang Jiyu, Ningyu waved his hand, signaling him to stop first. Afterwards, Ningyu stood in front of the ninth prince and lightly said, "Ninth prince, I believe that Tang Jiyu is your friend, but if you say that he is the emperor's friend, I beg to differ. Li Tongtian and I ranked first in the alchemy and martial arts examinations. We've already earned the right to enter Frost Manor. Why would the emperor send someone to kill us? With his majesty's strength, killing us would be as easy as flipping his hand. There's no need for him to wait until now." At this point, Ningyu paused for a moment and then continued, "It's fine that you slandered me, but you maliciously slandered the emperor. What is your intention? You." The ninth prince was already somewhat angry when he saw Tonggu Town's miserable state. Now that he heard Ningyu's words, he was so angry that his face turned green. "Ningyu, don't think that I don't dare to kill you." The ninth prince's face was livid. He let out a low roar and immediately charged toward Ningyu at an astonishing speed. Heaven's wrongs can be forgiven, but one's own wrongs cannot be avoided. Looking at the approaching ninth prince, Ningyu shook his head. Kacha. In the next instant, a clear voice resounded from within the room, and then the entire room fell silent. The ninth prince, who was speeding away, suddenly stopped. Then, The ninth prince slowly turned around. At the end of the room, a figure was lying on the ground. His face was pale, and his aura had long since dissipated. Ka. The ninth prince's expression immediately darkened. He clenched his fists so hard that cracking sounds could be heard, and a cold expression appeared on his face. The martial artist lying on the ground was none other than the yin-yang realm middle stage martial artist, Tang Jiyu. Just now, the Dark Emperor had received Ningyu's instructions, so without saying a word, he directly used his tail to break Tangu's neck. After breaking Tangu's neck, the Dark Emperor wrapped him up with his tail and threw him to the end of the room. Gulp! Seeing Tang Jiyu lying on the ground, Zhao Liang could not help but swallow a mouthful of saliva. His face was filled with shock. Tang Jiyu, who was in the middle stage of the yin-yang realm, was killed just like that. The shock on Cao Qi's face was no less than Zhao Liang's. Both of them were at the half-step yin-yang state. Their original order was to cooperate with Tang Jiyu. Who would have thought that Tang Jiyu would be killed by Ningyu and Li Tongtian? No, it should be Ningyu and a black dog. At this moment, they were very confused. Ningyu and the black dog's cultivation were not very high, so how could they kill Tang Jiyu, who was in the middle stage of the yin-yang realm? Ningyu is indeed terrifying. His control over soul force and yuan qi has already reached the pinnacle. Li Tongtian was already rooted to the ground. He mumbled to himself, when I get back this time, I need to cultivate my soul power properly. I can also sign up for the alchemy competition. Ha ha ha, it's been a long time since I've had such an enjoyable battle. Today is really refreshing. The Dark Emperor was a little arrogant. He first laughed out loud, then said, if there's something like this in the future, I'll be the first to participate. Forget it. If it wasn't for me, you would have been killed by Tang Jiyu. How dare you boast so shamelessly? Aren't you ashamed? Ningyu mercilessly exposed the Dark Emperor's daydream and said, go back to where you came from. It's not safe here. Hey, Ningyu, how can you say that? What do you mean I'm boasting? Then let me ask you, was Tang Jiyu killed by me? Hearing Ningyu's words, the Dark Emperor was unhappy and shouted. You killed him. You're amazing, all right. Ningyu knew the Dark Emperor's temper very well. He had no choice but to say it. However, before Ningyu could finish his sentence, the ninth prince said coldly, don't play dumb here. You killed Tang Jiyu today. Even if father knew about this, he wouldn't, cough cough. Sometimes, things in this world were just so coincidental. Just a moment ago, the ninth prince had interrupted Ningyu's speech. Now, he was interrupted by two dry coughs. Initially, the ninth prince was furious when he was interrupted. However, when he saw the figure at the door, he immediately calmed down. Father, why are you here? Why can't I be here? If I didn't come, who knows what kind of trouble you're going to get yourself into? Ouyang Ba wore a cold expression. As soon as he entered the room, he scolded the ninth prince. Hurry up and go back to face the wall and reflect on your mistakes. You can only come out when you admit your mistakes. After scolding the ninth prince, Ouyang Ba glanced at Ningyu and said, Tang Jiyu is indeed a member of the royal family. As for why he trespassed here, I'll need to investigate further. Emperor, Tang Jiyu has been killed. In my opinion, there's no need to investigate further. Ningyu said in a calm tone. If there's nothing else, you and Li Tongtian should have a good rest. I'll send someone to pick you up early tomorrow morning. After saying this, Ouyang Ba turned around and headed out of the room. However, as soon as Ouyang Ba turned around, he could not help but glance at the Dark Emperor. Furthermore, as soon as he saw the Dark Emperor, a cold grin appeared on his face. Although the grin disappeared as soon as it appeared, Ningyu still managed to catch it. Did he discover the Dark Emperor's true identity? Ningyu had a bad feeling, but at the same time, he felt that it was unbelievable. Since the Dark Emperor had reached the peak primal core realm, the aura of the celestial devouring hound had almost been completely concealed. The remaining aura of the celestial devouring hound was extremely difficult for ordinary cultivators to discover. At the very least, with Ouyang Ba's cultivation and senses, it was impossible for him to discover the Dark Emperor's true identity. Forget it, things will eventually sort themselves out. The most important thing now is to let the Dark Emperor rest in the storage ring and recover to his peak condition as soon as possible. Ningyu was not an indecisive person. Even if the Emperor had discovered that the Dark Emperor was a celestial devouring hound, he would not be able to leave the heavily guarded palace. Let's not talk about whether there would be another Yin-Yang realm intermediate stage martial artist like Tang Jiyu. When the Emperor glanced at the Dark Emperor, Ningyu noticed a soul force probing him and the Dark Emperor without restraint. The soul force was extremely powerful, such that even the Dark Emperor had failed to notice it. If Ningyu did not have the senses of his past life, he would not have noticed it either. Whoosh! After Ouyang Ba left the room, Zhao Liang and Cao Qi did not dare to stay any longer. The two of them hurriedly lifted Tang Jiyu up and left the room. Ningyu, don't you think there's something fishy about this? After Ouyang Ba and the others left, Li Tongtian said in a deep voice, in my opinion, Tang Jiyu must be, Ningyu immediately put a finger on his lips to stop Li Tongtian. Seeing Ningyu's actions, Li Tongtian forcefully swallowed the words that were on the tip of his tongue. You don't have to say it, I have the same thought as you. Chapter 473. Early preparation. What do we do now? Li Tongtian was no ordinary martial artist after all. After a short moment of shock, he calmed down. Wait. Ningyu said in a low voice. Wait. Li Tongtian frowned slightly, feeling a little confused. Now that they were being watched, instead of thinking of a way to leave the palace, they were waiting here. What was Ningyu up to? That's right, wait. Ningyu nodded. The palace must be heavily guarded now. Given our strength, it's basically impossible for us to leave. Don't forget, I'm also here. The Dark Emperor was unhappy. Ningyu had obviously excluded him. You're seriously injured now, so you're considered half. Ningyu glared fiercely at the Dark Emperor and said, all we can do is wait and deal with the changes by staying the same. No, I have to think of a way to contact the outside world. Although what Ningyu said made sense, Li Tongtian did not want to sit around and wait for his death. The next moment, he flicked his sleeves and a beam of cold light shot out towards the passageway above the room. Pust. However, there seemed to be a transparent barrier at the entrance of the passageway. The moment the beam of cold light came into contact with the barrier, it disappeared from the world. Li Tongtian, don't waste your energy. This room is completely sealed. Ningyu found a random chair and sat down. He shrugged and said, if I'm not wrong, you can't even get out of the room. I don't believe it. Li Tongtian was a straightforward person. After the beam of cold light was swallowed by the barrier, he threw a few more beams of cold light. Pust. The result was not unexpected. The cold light he threw out was completely devoured by the barrier. After the beams of cold light were swallowed, Li Tongtian snorted and walked towards the door. Soon, Li Tongtian arrived at the door. Poof! This time, Li Tongtian's luck was much worse than before. Just as his palm touched the door handle, it was as though he was struck by lightning. His body could not help but twitch. Bang! Fortunately, Ningyu dashed forward immediately. He raised his right leg and kicked Li Tongtian's buttocks, waking him up. Otherwise, Li Tongtian would convulse for at least a quarter of an hour. I told you, this room is completely sealed, but you didn't listen. Ningyu grumbled, if it happens again, I can't guarantee that I'll be able to save you. After saying this, Ningyu closed his eyes and quietly released his perception. Ningyu knew that Li Tongtian was a smart man. After failing twice in a row, he would definitely realize that something was wrong and would not do anything stupid again. Therefore, Ningyu began to release his perception, wanting to detect if there were any experts around the palace. To be more precise, he wanted to see if there were any experts who had noticed this room. In the room, Ningyu was scanning the surroundings for any martial artists while Li Tongtian was much more well-behaved. After being taught a lesson twice, he obediently stayed in the room and did not make any more risky attempts. As for the Dark Emperor, he took out a few Supreme Yuan crystals out of nowhere and squatted in a corner to chew on them. Gasp! After about 10 minutes, Ningyu took in a deep breath. At the same time, his eyes widened and were filled with shock. This is the palace indeed. There are so many experts. Ning Yu's expression was solemn. Actually, it was no wonder that Ning Yu's expression was solemn. In the short span of 10 minutes, he had detected at least 5 powerful auras around the palace. Among these 5 auras, the weakest was at the advanced yin-yang realm. There was even an aura that had reached the pinnacle of yin-yang realm. Ning Yu was not too worried about the auras of the pinnacle of yin-yang realm martial artists. However, other than the pinnacle of yin-yang realm martial artists, he vaguely detected an even more terrifying existence. Furthermore, that terrifying existence had already locked its aura on him. There's a high possibility that it's an existence that has surpassed yin-yang realm. Ning Yu was extremely shocked and maintained a posture, not daring to act recklessly. Swoosh. Soon, the terrifying aura retreated from Ning Yu and stopped on Li Tongtian. As Li Tongtian's soul perception wasn't very strong, he did not realize that anyone had noticed him. To describe Li Tongtian right now, the ignorant were fearless. Next, the terrifying aura changed its target and landed on the Dark Emperor. The Dark Emperor was the emperor of the Heaven-swallowing Hound clan after all. He was very sensitive to auras and soul perception. Therefore, when the terrifying aura noticed him, he realized that something was wrong. The Dark Emperor wanted to speak, but Ning Yu shook his head at him. As the aura was extremely terrifying, even Ning Yu did not dare to speak, afraid that he would be discovered. Although the Dark Emperor was a little rash, he was still rather rational when it came to big matters. After following Ning Yu for so long, the Dark Emperor could already understand most of Ning Yu's actions. Voila! After about half an hour, Ning Yu felt the powerful pressure on his body dissipate. He immediately heaved a sigh of relief and revealed a relieved expression. Ning Yu, who was that powerful warrior just now? The Dark Emperor still had a lingering fear in his heart as he asked. How the hell would I know? Ning Yu rolled his eyes at the Dark Emperor and immediately split out a portion of his perception to pay attention to the changes in the room. This was because Ning Yu did not want to waste time. He wanted to use the next few hours to properly cultivate the Netherworld Samsara Palm and the Supreme 9 Purities Sword Art. Previously at the Ivory City's Zhong family, just as Ning Yu wanted to cultivate the 6th style of the Netherworld Samsara Palm, he was interrupted by Zhong Hang of the capital's Zhong family, causing him to be unable to cultivate it successfully. Right now, he still had a decent chance. Most importantly, he did not know what dangers he would face next. It was extremely important for Ning Yu to raise his strength at this time. The 6th style of the Netherworld Samsara Palm. Ning Yu first recalled the cultivation method of the Samsara Palm in his mind, then the essence in his sea of consciousness surged out and wrapped around his wrist. Go! With a low roar, Ning Yu quickly pushed his palm out and a palm print appeared in an instant. Kai! The palm print had just struck out when it dissipated. Seeing this, Ning Yu slowly shook his head and once again infused the essence in his sea of consciousness into his palm and pushed out a second time. Kai! The second palm print did not seem to improve, and it still dissipated as soon as it was sent out. After failing to cultivate 2 palm prints in a row, Ning Yu was not discouraged. Instead, he attacked with palm prints again and again. Kai. In the next 3 hours, Ning Yu did not know how many palm prints he had sent out, but without exception, all of them dissipated. Not a single one lasted to the end. Samsara Palm. On the 100th palm, Ning Yu's eyes turned cold. He infused a wave of soul force into his palm and pushed it out. Whoosh whoosh. The power of Ning Yu's palm was extremely strong. The surrounding air was compressed and dispersed in all directions. Even Li Tongtian was captivated by this palm print. Break. Crack. In the next instant, Ning Yu let out a low roar and a crisp crack sounded. Chapter 474. Set off. Swoosh. The shockwave from the explosion of the palm rushed towards Li Tongtian at an alarming speed, causing his expression to change drastically. Li Tongtian's strength and soul power were not weak, so he could naturally tell that the power of Ning Yu's palm was extremely strong. Of course, it was not the palm that was rushing towards him, but the shockwave from the explosion of the palm. Damn it! Li Tongtian couldn't help but curse as he looked at the shockwave that was approaching him. He had not recovered to his peak condition yet, so it was basically impossible for him to withstand the shockwave from the explosion of the palm. Swoosh! In the blink of an eye, Ningyu rose from the ground and appeared in front of Li Tongtian. At the same time, Ningyu's hands began to move in a rhythmic pattern. As Ningyu's hands continued to move, the shockwave from the explosion in front of Li Tongtian seemed to be drawn in, and gradually gathered around Ningyu's palms. Boom! In the next moment, Ningyu guided the shockwave from his hands, causing them to rush towards the passageway above the room. The shockwave collided with the barrier, and without any fancy moves, there was a loud explosion. Then, the shockwave and the barrier disappeared together. Whoosh! The moment the barrier disappeared, the expressions of the martial artists hiding in the surroundings changed drastically, and they immediately directed their auras in this direction. Dark Emperor, hurry up and enter the storage ring. When Ningyu threw out the shockwave from his hands, he sent a voice transmission to the Dark Emperor. There will definitely be a large number of martial artists paying attention to this place later. In order to prevent you from being discovered, it's better for you to hide in the storage ring for a while. Swoosh! The Dark Emperor understood the situation he was in, and without any hesitation, he turned into an afterimage and entered the storage ring. Ningyu, your ring. Seeing the Dark Emperor turn into an afterimage and enter the storage ring, Li Tongtian's mouth was slightly agape, and his face was filled with confusion. Although he was a supreme prodigy and had many heaven-grade magic treasures in his possession, he did not have a single one that could store living thing. Shut up! Ningyu's tone was cold as he said in a deep voice, if you don't want to be exposed, don't speak for a while. Hearing Ningyu's reprimanding tone, Li Tongtian revealed a look of displeasure. However, just as he was about to retort, his heart went cold, and he immediately shut his mouth. This was because he discovered that several powerful auras had already locked onto this room and were probing it without restraint. There was a black dog just now. Why is it gone now? This doesn't make sense. It's a living black dog. How could it disappear just like that? Even if we kill it and eat its meat, there will be dog bones left behind. After several powerful senses locked onto the room, they did not probe for too long before focusing their attention on the Dark Emperor. The corners of Ningyu's mouth twitched involuntarily as he listened to the discussions of these powerful practitioners. Experts from the royal family were actually discussing a dog. If word of this got out, it would definitely cause a huge commotion in the capital. What kind of dog would it have to be for so many experts to be discussing it so enthusiastically? One of the practitioners did not go with the flow. His attention was on Ningyu. More accurately, it was on the storage ring on Ningyu's wrist. If I'm not wrong, it's a magic treasure that can store living things. The practitioner frowned, then shook his head and muttered, forget it. Let's wait until they enter the ice manor before making a move. If we make a move now, people might talk behind our backs. Sigh, it's all because of Li Tongtian. With that, the practitioner sighed softly and retracted his senses. The rest of the practitioners also retracted their senses when they noticed the practitioner's actions. The perception of these cultivators came and went quickly, almost completely disappearing in an instant. Phew! Feeling the many senses disappear, Ningyu heaved a sigh of relief. After calming himself down, Ningyu said in a deep voice, Li Tongtian, tell me about the ice manor. This trip to the ice manor was destined to be fraught with danger. As the saying goes, know yourself and know your enemy, and you will never be defeated. What Ningyu needed to do now was to do everything he could to understand the ice manor and the royal family. The ice manor is a palace. Li Tongtian broke out in a cold sweat when those senses swept across the room unscrupulously just now. Because Li Tongtian realized that he was no match for the owner of all the senses. The ice manor is divided into the inner and outer residences. Li Tongtian explained, as long as you are a genius of the royal family, you can enter the outer residences to cultivate. But to enter the inner residences, you must obtain the emperor's approval. In other words, no matter how talented you are, as long as the emperor doesn't approve, you cannot enter the inner residences of the ice manor to cultivate. There are quite a lot of restrictions. Ningyu frowned and asked again, have you entered the inner residences? Li Tongtian shook his head and said, I've only stayed in the outer residences. As for the inner residences, I haven't entered. Alright, There are still 3 to 4 hours before daybreak. Use this time to rest well and try to recover to your peak tomorrow morning. Ningyu did not ask any more questions. Instead, he sat down cross-legged and started cultivating. Ningyu had successfully cultivated the 6th form of the netherworld samsara palm. However, Ningyu had only cultivated the 6th form of the 9 purities supreme sword technique to the intermediate stage. If he could cultivate it to the advanced stage, Ningyu believed that he would be able to put up a fight against a martial artist of the intermediate stage of the yin-yang realm. Time flew. In the blink of an eye, 3 hours had passed. When the first ray of sunlight shone on the soul-breaking sword in Ningyu's hand through the passage above the room, Ningyu opened his eyes with a look of ecstasy. After 3 hours of sleepless cultivation, Ningyu had finally cultivated the 6th form of the 9 purities supreme sword technique, solitaire, to the advanced stage. With the advanced stage of solitaire and the 6th form of the netherworld samsara palm, Ningyu was confident that he could take on a martial artist of the intermediate stage of the yin-yang realm. Of course, it would be difficult to kill a martial artist of the intermediate stage of the yin-yang realm alone unless Ningyu raised his cultivation to the early stage of the primal core stage. Whoosh! On the other side, Li Tongtian had also woken up. Li Tongtian had already recovered to his peak condition. It was as if he had become a different person. His mental state was excellent. Creak. At this moment, the door to the room was pushed open from the outside. Ningyu, Li Tongtian, follow me. The emperor is waiting for you at the ice residence. Before the person arrived, the voice came first. Not long after, a figure slowly appeared in front of Ningyu and Li Tongtian. Old Tan. It was really a small world for them to bump into Old Tan again. Let's go. Since they were going to the ice residence, Ningyu and Li Tongtian did not linger. Instead, they rushed towards the ice residence ahead of Old Tan. It's not that easy to reach the ice residence. Chapter 475. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. In the Imperial Palace, 3 figures were galloping. The first 2 were Ningyu and Li Tongtian, while the last one was Elder Tan. As Li Tongtian knew the way to Frost Manor, he didn't let Elder Tan lead the way. On the contrary, he and Ningyu left Elder Tan behind. To actually compete with me in speed. Looking up at Ningyu and Li Tongtian not far away, Elder Tan smiled. Fine, I'll let you know the speed of an early-stage yin-yang realm martial artist. Swoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, the yuan qi in Elder Tan's consciousness rumbled, and his speed increased by 30%. Elder Tan's speed was originally only half a beat slower than Ningyu and Li Tongtian. Now that his speed increased by 30%, he naturally caught up to Ningyu and Li Tongtian easily. Sigh, it's been a long time since I've exercised. Today is considered. After catching up to Ningyu, Elder Tan sighed. Just as he was about to mock them, he saw Ningyu and Li Tongtian's speed increase, leaving him behind again. Damn it. The actions of Ningyu and Li Tongtian caused Elder Tan's face to turn ashen as he clenched his fists. Swoosh. The next moment, Elder Tan gritted his teeth and increased his speed again. This time, Elder Tan's speed increased by more than 2-fold. With his speed doubled, Elder Tan caught up to Ningyu and Li Tongtian for the second time. Li Tongtian, it's uncomfortable to have a fly following us. Let's speed up a little. Before Elder Tan could speak, Ningyu turned to look at him and said, we mustn't let His Majesty wait for too long. I'm so pissed. Hearing Ningyu's words, Elder Tan was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. Ningyu was obviously looking down on him. Every time he increased his speed, Ningyu would increase his speed. When he slowed down, Ningyu would slow down as well. In any case, the distance between him and Ningyu was always so long. The aunt could endure it, but the uncle couldn't. What if he couldn't bear it? Chase. That was what Elder Tan was thinking at the moment. In order to catch up to Ningyu and Li Tongtian, Old Tan did not hesitate to burn his yuan qi to increase his speed. In the end, he even burned his blood essence. Unfortunately, even if he burned his soul force, he would not be able to catch up to Ningyu. Whoosh. However, after flying for 3 minutes, Ningyu and Li Tongtian stopped in their tracks. Ha ha ha, I've finally caught up. Seeing Ningyu and Li Tongtian stop, Elder Tan thought that they had expended too much essence qi and wanted to replenish it. However, when he saw the three silhouettes in front of Ningyu, his eyes were filled with surprise. Because Elder Tan recognized the three martial artists blocking Ningyu's path, and he was very familiar with them. This is the Imperial Palace, not a place for you to behave atrociously. Among the three martial artists, 2 were fat, and 1 was skinny. After blocking Ningyu and Li Tongtian's path, one of the fat men berated, "Hurry up and tell us your names, genders, residences, and what you're going to do. Just tell us all the random stuff." "What if I don't?" Ningyu said in a low voice. When he saw that the path to Ice Manor was blocked, Ningyu's first thought was that someone was here to cause trouble. Indeed, the three martial artists in front of him were here to cause trouble. The 3 of them did not have very high levels of cultivation. The skinny one was only at the pinnacle of the primal core stage. As for the other 2 fat men, one was at the late primal core stage, and the other was at the mid-primal core stage. The fat man who had first berated Ningyu was at the mid-primal core stage. "Who are you? Why should I tell you these things?" Ningyu stared at them with interest after learning the cultivation of the martial artists in front of him. "Oh, you're quite stubborn, to dare to be so arrogant in front of the 3 of us." The late primal core fat man raised an eyebrow and laughed sinisterly. "Listen up, kid, we are, all right, I don't want to know who you are, and I don't care." Ningyu felt that there was no point in staying here with them, so he waved his hand and interrupted the fat man. "We'll never meet again." With that, Ningyu moved again, intending to bypass them and head towards Ice Manor. "I gave you face, but you don't want it. You've offended the Emperor, you're destined to spend the rest of your life in bed." However, as soon as Ningyu reached the late primal core fat man, his eyes turned cold, and he immediately retreated. This was because the late primal core fat man had attacked instantly, using his fat fist to punch Ningyu's chest. When he made his move, the fat of the late primal core stage fatty was trembling. Seeing Ningyu retreat, the other mid-primal core fat man also entered the fray, using his round fat to attack Ningyu. "I gave you face, but you don't want it." Even a clay figurine had some anger, not to mention a living person like Ningyu. After a cold snort, Ningyu's hands moved continuously, and in a split second, he sent out 2 palm prints. Smack! Smack! 2 palm prints landed on the cheeks of the 2 fat men, and 5 bloody marks immediately appeared on their faces. "How dare you hit me?" The 2 fat men seemed to have been beaten senseless, and they stood there in a daze. Pointing at their own noses, they asked, "Do you know my father's name? What does your father's name have to do with me?" Ningyu did not care what their father's name was. They could not all be called Li Gang, right? They are twins, surnamed Li, and their father is Li Gang. Next to him, the skinny peak primal core cultivator's words made Ningyu almost vomit his bile out. Wasn't this too much of a coincidence? Swoosh. Seeing that Ningyu was stunned, the thin warrior's lips curled up into a smile. In the next moment, the thin warrior took advantage of Ningyu's moment of shock, clenched his hand into a fist, and with a violent gust of yuan qi, he viciously punched towards Ningyu's head. The thin warrior was a peak primal core warrior, and he was an expert in sneak attacks. If he had not been prepared, even an early yin-yang warrior would have fallen to his sneak attack. Bang! However, just as the thin warrior's fist arrived in front of Ningyu, Ningyu raised his right leg and kicked the thin warrior in the chest. The huge force from the chest caused the thin warrior's face to contort, and his body to fly backwards. A crisp sound rang out. The skinny cultivator hit the ground and fell face first onto the ground. Ha ha ha. Seeing the thin warrior fall to the ground, Tan Laro laughed hysterically and immediately sent a voice transmission to Ningyu. "Ningyu, you are finished this time. To tell you the truth, the fathers of the 3 of them are top-notch in the Great Xia Kingdom. The twins' father is General Weiwu of the Great Xia Kingdom, and he is at the peak of the early Yin-Yang realm. The thin warrior's father is General Hu Ben of the Great Xia Kingdom, and he is at the middle stage of the Yin-Yang realm. Not only are they strong, but they also have powerful backers behind them. How could they let you off after you injured their sons?" "That's right, I forgot to tell you something. General Wei Wu and General Hu Ben are both in the palace today. If I didn't guess wrongly, they should be. Chapter 476. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. As soon as Old Tan's voice fell, Ningyu saw two figures dashing over from afar. The two figures were very fast, and they arrived almost in the blink of an eye. One is at the peak of the early stage yin-yang realm, and the other is at the mid-stage yin-yang realm. Sensing the powerful aura exuding from the two martial artists in front of him, Ningyu's face turned slightly solemn. He said in a deep voice, "It seems that Old Tan is right. I wonder if they are the two generals, Might Wu and Hu Ben." The reason why Ningyu was able to discover the cultivation of the two martial artists at a glance was because they released their aura without holding back. "You're Ningyu?" The middle-aged man at the peak of the early stage yin-yang realm stared at Ningyu and said in a sinister tone, "You injured my two sons, so leave an arm behind." "How can an arm be enough? In my opinion, you should at least break both of his legs." The middle stage yin-yang realm berated, "If we hadn't discovered it in time, who knows what kind of heartless things Ningyu would have done now. Forget it, I'll make the first move and break one of his arms." The martial artist at the peak of the early stage yin-yang realm waved his hand and rose from the ground. Swoosh. He turned into a shadow and appeared beside Ningyu in an instant. Crack. In the next instant, Ningyu only heard a cracking sound beside him. Immediately, he did not dare to be negligent. He quickly wrapped his yuan qi around his fist and punched out. Boom. Ningyu's fist collided with the fist of the early stage yin-yang realm martial artist. What happened next was somewhat out of the expectations of the martial artists present. It was especially so for Old Tan and the middle stage yin-yang realm martial artist. Both of them stood rooted to the ground, staring at Ningyu with disbelief written all over their faces. Gulp. A moment later, the middle stage yin-yang realm Qian who swallowed a mouthful of saliva with a very interesting expression on his face. He knew Li Gang's strength very well. Although Li Gang wasn't as strong as him, he wasn't much weaker. Ningyu was able to fight Li Gang to a draw. Didn't that mean that it was extremely likely that he would lose to Ningyu as well? Thinking of this, Qian Hu's expression completely darkened. As a middle-stage yin-yang realm martial artist, if he couldn't even subdue Ningyu, who was in the late stage of true martial realm, how could he maintain his foothold in the capital? Therefore, in Qian Hu's heart, even if he had to use his trump card, he had to teach Ningyu a lesson. Damn it! Damn it! Compared to Qian Hu's shock, Old Tan was much less shocked. After all, he had fought with Ningyu before and knew Ningyu's true strength. However, he had never expected that Ningyu could fight Li Gang, who was at the early stage of yin-yang realm, to a draw. Although Li Gang's cultivation was not high, he was extremely powerful. It could be said that even two of him might not be able to defeat Li Gang. After defeating Li Gang, there's still Qian Hu. "I don't believe that you can defeat Qian Hu as well," Old Tan snorted coldly and said sinisterly. In short, from Old Tan's point of view, Ningyu would definitely suffer a little this time. Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to overcome this obstacle. Swoosh. At this moment, Qian Hu rose from the ground and rushed towards Ningyu. Being on the battlefield all year round, Qian Hu had developed a very good habit. That was to never underestimate anyone, even if that martial artist had nothing and was weak. There was another point that Qian Hu pursued. If he could fight two against one, he would never fight one-on-one. In this aspect, he was very similar to Ningyu. Swoosh. However, just as Ningyu was about to make a move, he saw a figure flash past in front of him. This figure was none other than Li Tongtian. Li Tongtian flicked his sleeves and a black token appeared in his hand. The next moment, Li Tongtian raised the black token in his hand and paused in front of Qian Hu for a second before putting it away. Gasp! Seeing the token in Li Tongtian's hand, Qian Hu could not help but suck in a breath of cold air despite his powerful strength. At this moment, another thought popped up in his mind. Li Tongtian could not be offended. At the very least, he could not. D***MN, the ninth prince is pushing me into a pit of fire. Qian Hu's face darkened. Not long after, he gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, "Li Gang, let's retreat." Retreat. Why should we retreat? Li Gang still wanted to regain his dignity. He would definitely not be willing to leave now. We can't afford to offend the martial artist next to Ningyu. After saying that, Qian Hu grabbed the skinny martial artist in his hand and rose from the ground, rushing into the distance. Seeing that Qian Hu had left, Li Gang could only glare at Ningyu before dragging his two fat sons and disappearing. F***CK. Old Tan was a little dumbfounded as he looked at the backs of Qian Hu and the rest. Initially, he thought that Ningyu would have to suffer a little. After all, Ningyu had injured the sons of two generals. Who would have thought that everything would end just as quickly as it came? Qian Hu and Li Gang didn't know what had gotten into them, but they chose to leave right away. They didn't even say a word. Based on Old Tan's understanding of Qian Hu and the rest, this was not their style. Ningyu's brows were tightly knitted as a look of confusion appeared on his face. When Li Tongtian took out the black token, Ningyu noticed that there was a word on it. It was the word pill. As for the rest of the words, Ningyu could not see them clearly for the time being. Ningyu, we've wasted so much time here. Let's hurry up and leave, Li Tongtian said in a low voice. Let's go. Ningyu wasn't an indecisive person. When Li Tongtian mentioned that he wanted to leave, he stomped on the ground and dashed towards the ice manor. Li Tongtian did not dare to delay. After Ningyu left, he immediately leaped up and followed closely behind. In the beginning, Ningyu and Li Tongtian's speed was not slow. In fact, it could be described as terrifying. However, as they got closer to Ice Manor, Ningyu and Li Tongtian's speed became slower and slower. In the end, they just walked. When we reach Ice Manor later, the two of you must remember not to make too much noise and cause trouble. Don't. 10 minutes after Ningyu and Li Tongtian slowed down, Old Tan caught up with them. In order to show his authority, Old Tan coughed dryly. Following that, Old Tan talked non-stop as if he did not know what fatigue was. Ningyu and Li Tongtian only chose to listen to the main points. The rest were filtered out. I've said everything that needs to be said. Good luck. After about 15 minutes, Old Tan finally stopped. He extended his palm and pointed at the wooden door in front of him. Open this wooden door and you'll be considered to have entered Ice Manor. As soon as he finished speaking, Old Tan turned to leave. Old Tan, didn't you say that His Majesty was waiting for us at Ice Manor? Ningyu called out to Old Tan. Why didn't I see him here? Who do you think His Majesty is? Why would he be here to welcome you? Chapter 477. The Three Guardians. I can see the Emperor if I enter the inner palace. Ningyu frowned slightly when he heard Old Tan's words, and a puzzled expression appeared on his face. Li Tongtian had said that he had to get the Emperor's permission to enter the inner palace. Now Elder Tan was saying that he could only see the Emperor if he entered the inner palace. Why? However, when Ningyu wanted to continue asking, he realized that Elder Tan had already disappeared. Ningyu, are you going in or not? Just then, Li Tongtian asked. Li Tongtian wasn't sure if he wanted to enter the Ice Manor either, so he wanted to ask Ningyu for his opinion. Of course I'm going in. Ningyu's eyes turned cold as he pushed open the wooden door and walked in. Li Tongtian hesitated as he watched Ningyu enter the Ice Manor, but he quickly followed. Swoosh. Just as Ningyu stepped through the wooden door, a cold glint shot towards him. The sudden change caused Ningyu's expression to change slightly. He didn't have the time to think and immediately retreated. Crack. In the next moment, a clear cracking sound resounded. Ningyu looked back at the wooden door that had been smashed into smithereens and gasped. Luckily, he had dodged in time, or he would have ended up like the wooden door. Welcome, both of you. This is the outer palace of Ice Manor. If you can defeat me, you will pass the test and enter the inner palace. Before Ningyu could calm down from the shock, he saw a young man walking towards him step by step from a short distance away. Ningyu's expression changed as he looked at the young man. Because he sensed a strong aura of danger from the young man's body. This meant that the young man was extremely powerful. Pinnacle of the primal core stage. However, the young man was only at the pinnacle of the primal core stage. Ningyu, He is one of the 3 guardians of the outer palace of Ice Manor. Li Tongtian walked over and said in a low voice. 3 great protectors? Ning Yu was taken aback and asked doubtfully. That's right. Li Tongtian nodded and said, there are 3 guardians in the outer palace of the Ice Mansion. It is said that their cultivation level has always been at the pinnacle of the primal core stage, but their true strength is unparalleled. There were 3 early yin-yang realm martial artists who tried to break into Frost Mansion. Frost Mansion only sent out 1 outer mansion guardian to capture the 3 early yin-yang realm martial artists alive. Pa. As soon as Li Tongtian finished speaking, the young man clapped his hands and said with a faint smile, looks like you know a lot about Frost Manor. However, after that, the young man changed the topic and said gloomily, if you want to enter the outer palace, you must pass through me. Cover your ears. When the young man's last sentence fell, Ning Yu's expression changed greatly, and he hurriedly covered his ears. Ning Yu had just covered his ears when he saw Li Tongtian hugging his head with both hands, looking extremely pained. Damn it! Li Tongtian's pained expression obviously agitated Ning Yu. In the next instant, he pushed off the ground with both feet, and like a cheetah, he appeared in front of the young man in an instant. Whoosh! Following that, Ning Yu's fist brought with it a violent gust of yuan qi, and he viciously punched the young man's chest. Seeing Ning Yu's sudden attack, the young man raised his eyelids slightly, and an evil smile appeared on his lips. Then, the young man punched out, and his fist collided with Ning Yu's. Bang! Before the 2 fists collided, the young man's expression was very relaxed, and even a little playful. However, after the 2 fists collided, the young man's expression changed drastically, and he wanted to retract his fist. How dare you use sound wave techniques? What a vicious heart! How could Ning Yu let this young man go? With a cold snort, he clenched his right hand into a fist and punched the young man's ear. There were many types of sound wave techniques, but no matter which one it was, if one was not prepared, it would cause great damage to a martial artist. It could be said that if not for Ning Yu's timely attack, Li Tongtian might have lost his hearing. Whoosh! Whoosh! However, before Ning Yu's fist could land on the young man's ear, 2 figures attacked from afar. These 2 figures were filled with violent yuan qi. The moment they appeared, they launched a powerful attack on Ning Yu. However, these 2 martial artists had a purpose in their attacks. They wanted to force Ning Yu to retreat, and thus save the young man. Since you want to play, I'll play with you this time. Ning Yu gritted his teeth, and immediately took out the soul-severing sword. At the same time, the yuan qi in his mind was frantically injected into the soul-severing sword. Buzz! Solitaire! After the soul-severing sword vibrated to a certain extent, Ning Yu chopped down with his wrist. In an instant, 2 shocking sword waves formed and attacked the 2 martial artists who had just appeared. Oh no! The 2 martial artists who had just appeared were not idiots. They could naturally sense the power of the sword waves. Helpless, in order to ensure their own safety, they could only choose to retreat. Before the 2 of them could retreat a few steps, they heard a scream that sounded like a pig being slaughtered. Third brother. Turning their heads to see the man lying on the ground, the 2 martial artists who had just appeared opened their mouths in shock. This was because the man lying on the ground was none other than the young man. Bang! Bang! However, the 2 of them seemed to have forgotten that they had been targeted by the sword waves. The outcome was obvious. They were hit by solitaire. Fart! Fart! The 2 martial artists each spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Their faces were a little pale. Careless, completely careless. Ning Yu was only at the late stage of the true martial realm. With the strength of the 3 of them, they could have easily defeated Ning Yu. Instead of doing such an easy task, they had to put on a show and let third brother deal with Ning Yu, resulting in their failure. Ning Yu, you defeated the 3 of them just like that. What had happened in such a short period of time had completely exceeded Li Tongtian's expectations. More accurately, he had not expected Ning Yu to be able to defeat the 3 guardians of the Ice Mansion's outer mansion so easily. One had to know that the 3 guardians of the Ice Mansion's outer mansion were extremely powerful. If they joined forces, They could even fight against a mid-stage yin-yang realm martial artist. In that case, did that mean that Ningyu could also fight against a mid-stage yin-yang realm martial artist? Thinking of this, Li Tongtian's eyes revealed an extremely shocked expression. High alchemy skills and strong martial arts skills. What kind of monster was Ningyu? Li Tongtian, don't just stand there. Let's hurry to the Ice Mansion's inner mansion. Just as Li Tongtian was in a daze, Ningyu's voice rang in his ear. Hearing Ningyu's words, Li Tongtian was slightly taken aback. Lifting his head, he saw that Ningyu had already started walking towards the Ice Mansion's inner mansion. This time, Li Tongtian did not hesitate and hurried to catch up with him. With such a display of strength the moment they entered the Ice Mansion, who knew what kind of danger they would face when they entered the inner mansion? Chapter 478. Freezing Silver Needles. Your Majesty, are you really going to let Ningyu and Li Tongtian stay in the inner palace for a day and a night? In a room in the inner palace of the Ice Mansion, there was a crystal barrier on the wall. What had happened in the outer palace of the Ice Mansion was reflected on the crystal barrier as if history was repeating itself. Towards the end, an elder in the room said in a deep voice, "Give me some more time, I can definitely break the formation. You may leave first, I have my own arrangements for this." Beside the elder, Ouyang closed his eyes and waved his hand. "What you need to do now is to open the door to the inner palace of the Ice Mansion and let Ningyu and Li Tongtian in." Hearing Ouyang words, the elder's chest heaved up and down unwillingly. However, this unwillingness did not show on the elder's face. Understood. After responding, the elder slowly left the room. Creak. After the elder closed the door, Ouyang lips curled into an evil smile. After probing for so long, the real business is finally here. I hope you won't disappoint me, otherwise. Ouyang did not finish his sentence, but the meaning was clear. At the same time, Ningyu and Li Tongtian arrived at the entrance of the inner palace of the Ice Mansion. Looking at the stone door before him, Ningyu frowned slightly, feeling slightly surprised. This was because he realized that when his senses came into contact with the stone door, it was like a stone sinking into the ocean, and was directly swallowed by the stone door. Swallowing senses was enough to prove the uniqueness of the stone door before him. Creak. However, Ningyu's shock did not last long before he was attracted by the deep sound of the stone door opening. Not long after, the stone door was opened from the inside. After the stone door opened, an elder slowly walked out from inside. Seeing the elder, Ningyu's heart skipped a beat and he had a bad feeling. This was because he could clearly sense a hint of coldness on the old man's face. This was the first time he had met the elder, right? Why would the elder be hostile towards him? Could it be that the old man was the guardian of the Ice Mansion's inner mansion, and the reason he came out this time was to stop him from entering the Ice Mansion's inner mansion? Ningyu, Li Tongtian, since you've passed the alchemy and martial arts tests set up by the Emperor, you can stay in the inner palace of Ice Mansion for a day and a night. The old man suppressed the anger in his heart and said in a low voice, "However, it is not easy to enter the inner palace of Frozen Mansion. You will need to pass my test." "There's a test?" Ningyu frowned and pondered for a moment before saying something that surprised the old man. "If that's the case, then we'll take our leave." With that, Ningyu turned around and left. He had no intention of staying. Ningyu's actions caused the old man to be slightly taken aback. Soon after, he sneered and said, "I don't believe that you really want to leave Ice Manor." In the old man's opinion, Ningyu was just saying it. There was no way he would leave the Ice Mansion. Whoosh. However, as Ningyu walked further and further away from him, the old man finally changed his expression. Ningyu wouldn't really leave the Ice Mansion, would he? If Ningyu really left Ice Mansion, then he would not be able to withstand the Emperor's wrath. Damn it. Cursing, the old man rose from the ground and appeared in front of Ningyu in an instant, blocking Ningyu's path. "There's no more test. You can enter the inner palace of Ice Mansion unconditionally," the old man said through gritted teeth, his expression extremely rich. Hearing this, Ningyu stopped. If that's the case. Turning around, Ningyu said to the old man, "Thank you." As soon as he finished speaking, Ningyu strode toward the stone door. "Ningyu, Could this be a trap? Li Tongtian was still a little worried and asked in a low voice. When we enter the inner palace later, we will leave this place as fast as we can, Ningyu said in a low voice. How fast? As fast as we can, whoosh. In the next moment, Ningyu and Li Tongtian moved and entered the inner palace. When he saw Ningyu and Li Tongtian enter the stone door, the corners of the elder's mouth curled up and he sneered, I have opened the stone door. As for whether you can successfully reach the emperor, that will depend on your luck. Whoosh, whoosh. As the old man's cold laughter faded, Ningyu and Li Tongtian increased their speed, desperately trying to get away from the stone door. Ding, ding. However, even though Ningyu and Li Tongtian pushed their speed to the limit, they were still half a beat too slow. Suddenly, two beams of cold light shot out from behind the stone door, aiming for their heads. At this critical juncture, Ningyu and Li Tongtian both took out a flying sword and slashed at the cold beams. Two crisp sounds rang out and the cold beams fell to the ground. Silver needles. Staring at the two silver needles on the ground, Ningyu and Li Tongtian looked at each other in horror. Ice Soul silver needles. Almost at the same time, Ningyu and Li Tongtian shouted. The Ice Soul silver needles were heaven upper-grade magical treasures and were extremely powerful. To put it more accurately, the Ice Soul silver needles contained poison, which was why they were so powerful. The two Ice Soul silver needles on the ground could easily injure a Yin-Yang Realm early-stage martial artist. If a Yin-Yang Realm early-stage martial artist did not receive treatment in time, he could very well lose his life. The more they thought about it, the more terrifying it was. At this moment, Ningyu and Li Tongtian's hearts were filled with fear. Luckily, they reacted in time. Otherwise, the consequences would be dire. Count yourselves lucky. But when you come out, you won't be so lucky anymore. Outside the stone door, the old man used a special method to see the two Ice Soul silver needles on the ground. He could not help but clench his fists tightly. Then, the old man tore through the air and disappeared. Ningyu, let's leave quickly. Li Tongtian was afraid that the Ice Soul silver needles would attack the stone door again. He did not want to stay here for a moment longer. Don't rush. I have a use for these two Ice Soul silver needles. Ningyu did not leave immediately. Instead, he took 2 steps forward and kept the Ice Soul silver needles. The Ice Soul silver needles were no longer poisonous. They only had the hardness of a heaven upper-grade magical treasure. Alright, let's go see the emperor now. After keeping the Ice Soul silver needles, Ningyu walked forward. Ningyu, do you know where the emperor is? Li Tongtian was stunned and asked. Of course I do. Ningyu kept him in suspense and smiled. Li Tongtian followed behind Ningyu doubtfully. He did not know if he could find the emperor. After a while, they stopped in front of a house. Your Majesty, we have arrived. Can we go in? After stopping, Ningyu asked in a clear voice. Hehe, you are indeed a young talent. You have arrived at the Ice Manor so quickly. A laugh came from the room. Come in, the door is open. Let's go. Hearing the words coming from the room, Ningyu did not hesitate. He went to the door and pushed it open. I don't believe that the emperor would dare to do anything to me. Chapter 479. Shielding senses. You guys are much faster than I expected. Inside the room, Ouyang-Ba smiled when he saw Ningyu and Li Tongtian walking in. Ouyang-Ba was well aware of the dangers that Ningyu and Li Tongtian had encountered along the way. He had even arranged some of them himself. Initially, he thought that no matter how strong Ningyu and Li Tongtian were, they would only arrive here after half an hour. Who would have thought that Ningyu and Li Tongtian would arrive so quickly? No wonder he was shocked. Your Majesty, you're not going to let us stay here for a day and a night, are you? Ningyu looked around the room and said with a frown, this place isn't very helpful for cultivation. Although the vitality in this room was relatively dense, it was only 2 to 3 times denser than the outside world. It was a far cry from the Dan Marshall Pool. Just like the Dan Marshall Pool, the Ice Mansion was a sacred place for cultivation. With such a low density of vitality, it was at most equivalent to the forbidden area of a second-rate clan. Calling it a sacred place for cultivation was unworthy of its name. Of course not. Ouyang-ba shook his head and said, "This room is only the entrance to the real ice mansion." As he spoke, Ouyang-ba came to the desk and touched it with his palm. Creak. Following that, a creaking sound was heard. The wall opposite Ningyu suddenly caved in. Gasp. As soon as the wall caved in, Ningyu's heart was in turmoil. His entire body was trembling uncontrollably. "Ningyu, what's wrong?" Li Tongtian asked confusedly when he saw Ningyu's reaction. Li Tongtian knew that with Ningyu's strength, there was no way he would be frightened by a wall caved in. "I'm fine." Ningyu took a deep breath and tried his best to calm himself down. Li Tongtian was right. A wall caved in was naturally not enough to frighten Ningyu. The reason why Ningyu was alarmed was because the Red Devil had told him that a golden crystal ball in his storage ring was glowing. The golden crystal ball was obtained by Ningyu when he was in Danwu College. To be more precise, he had obtained it from the hands of the first dean of Danwu College, Wei Zongtian, in the Danwu pool. Wei Zongtian's words were still fresh in Ningyu's mind. This crystal ball has a special characteristic. As long as you get close to the real Wu Kai realm, it will emit a golden light. Danwu College had the Dan pool and the Martial pool. However, the Dan pool was still around, while the real Martial pool was missing. The purpose of the golden crystal ball was to find the real Wu Kai. "Is the real Wu Kai realm in here?" Ningyu stared at the tunnel that appeared because of the hole in the wall. "There's a chance." Ningyu's action caused Ouyang-ba's eyes to flicker with excitement. However, the excitement disappeared as soon as it appeared. No one noticed it. The next moment, Ouyang-ba said in a deep voice, "When we enter the tunnel later, remember to follow behind me. Don't touch anything." Ouyang-ba took the lead and entered the tunnel as soon as he finished speaking. Behind him, Ningyu and Li Tongtian exchanged glances with one another before following closely behind him. Cold. Very cold. Extremely cold. The moment they entered the tunnel, Ningyu felt a chill assaulting him. This is the initial chill. You'll be fine as long as you can endure it. Ouyang-ba's words echoed in Ningyu's ears in a timely manner. Hearing this, Ningyu frowned slightly. He immediately unleashed his qi and wrapped it around his body. Whoosh, whoosh. A sizzling sound was heard as the chill and the qi came into contact. However, after the sound, the chill on Ningyu's body was swept away and completely disappeared. Seeing that Ningyu's action was effective, Li Tongtian also unleashed his qi and wrapped it around his body. Whoosh, whoosh. Obviously, Li Tongtian had also managed to resist the terrifying chill. Speed up. After passing through the area where the chill was, Ouyang-ba yelled in a deep voice, "There's a sea of fire ahead. You have to pass through it within 3 minutes. Whoosh." As soon as he finished speaking, Ouyang-ba increased his speed and disappeared in an instant. Looking at the sea of fire in front of him, Ningyu hesitated for a moment before he clenched his teeth and charged forward. As for Li Tongtian, he also increased his speed to the maximum in an attempt to pass through it as soon as possible. Hot. Very hot. Extremely hot. The moment he entered the sea of fire, Ningyu felt a terrifying scorching aura coming at him, causing him to feel suffocated. Luckily, Ningyu's qi was more vigorous. He quickly dispersed the scorching aura and accelerated with all his might. In the first minute, Ningyu had gone through 1/3 of the journey. In the second minute, Ningyu had gone through 2/3 of the journey. In the third minute, Ningyu dashed out of the sea of fire. After coming out of the sea of fire, Ningyu was stunned on the spot. His eyes were wide open and his face was filled with confusion. In front of him was a huge pond. The water in the pond was milky white. A cultivator was standing in front of the pond. It was none other than Ouyang-ba, the current emperor. Thereafter, Ningyu looked left and right. However, he did not see Li Tongtian. Could it be that Li Tongtian was killed? At the thought of this, Ningyu's expression turned gloomy and he said in a deep voice, "Your Majesty, I want to know where Li Tongtian is now." "Hehe, I forgot to tell you. There are 2 ponds in the Ice Manor. One is here and the other is where Li Tongtian went." Ouyang-ba was not angry at Ningyu's question. Instead, he smiled and said, "Don't worry. Li Tongqian's identity is rather special. I can't possibly kill him." Ningyu was stunned and asked, "Who exactly is Li Tongqian?" "I can't tell you that for now." Ouyang Ba shook his head and said, "If you want to know Li Tongqian's real identity, you can ask him yourself when you leave this place." Although that was what Ouyang Ba said, there was something that he did not say. "Once you've used up your usefulness, you can have a good rest." Ningyu had no idea what Ouyang Ba was thinking. His gaze was locked onto the pond in front of him. At the same time, Ningyu unleashed his senses to investigate the bottom of the pond. "Don't waste your energy. You won't be able to reach the bottom of the pond unless you enter it," Ouyang Ba calmly said, as if he knew what Ningyu was trying to do. "It's because there's a protective barrier at the top of the pond. The barrier is specifically designed to block the senses." "I see. It seems like the barrier is similar to the stone door at the entrance of the inner palace." After hearing Ouyang Ba's explanation, Ningyu finally came to a realization. Not long ago, when his senses came into contact with the stone door, it was devoured. This time, although his senses were not devoured, they could not penetrate it at all. "I'm leaving. Good luck." At that instant, Ouyang Ba smiled at Ningyu and said, "I'll be back in a day and night. I hope your strength will improve significantly by then." Crack. Chapter 480. The bottom of the pool. It's highly possible that the real martial pool is at the bottom of this pool. After Ouyang Ba left, Ningyu stared at the misty pool in front of him with a solemn expression. He did not enter the pool right away. Ningyu was not a fool. Ouyang Ba had set up such an ingenious trap and had gone through so much trouble to lure him to the ice mansion, and even to this pond. There must be a deeper meaning to it. As for what Ouyang Ba was planning, Ningyu had no idea. However, there was one thing Ningyu was sure about. The reason why Ouyang Ba had lured him here must be related to the real martial pool. "Forget it. I'm already here. If I don't go in, I might arouse Ouyang Ba's suspicion." After pondering for a moment, Ningyu took a deep breath, exerted a little force in his legs, and leaped up. Plop! The next moment, Ningyu jumped into the pool. The vitality is so rich. With his lower body submerged in the pool, Ningyu was shocked. The density of the essence energy in this pool was not the slightest bit inferior to the Danwu Academy's martial pool back then. Of course, the martial pool in Danwu College was not the real martial pool, so the vitality was not very rich. However, it was different here. It was the sacred cultivation ground of the royal family. If the vitality was not as rich as the fake martial pool, wouldn't it be embarrassing? "I can't waste the time to cultivate here for a day and a night. Let's focus on cultivation first." Ningyu did not think about the real martial pool for the time being. He lowered his body slightly and started cultivating the spirit transformation technique. Currently, Ningyu was only at the late stage of the true martial realm. If he made good use of this day and night, he could easily advance to the peak of the true martial realm. However, in order to break through to the Yuandan realm, he would need the help of elixirs. It's time to refine an energy transformation pill, Ningyu thought to himself while cultivating. The energy transformation pill was a peak 5th grade pill. It was a necessary pill for a martial artist at the peak of the true martial realm to advance to the Yuandan realm. A low-grade origin transformation pill could increase the success rate of a peak true martial realm martial artist charging into the origin core realm by 10%. Middle-grade essence transformation pills could increase the success rate by 20%. High-grade and top-grade origin transformation pills, on the other hand, could increase a true martial realm martial artist's success rate of breaking through to the Yuandan realm by 30% to 50%. As for the transcendent Yuan transformation pill, it could even allow a mediocre true martial stage pinnacle martial artist to directly advance to the primal core stage. Buzz. Ningyu temporarily put aside the matter of the transforming Yuan pill and began to circulate the transforming spirit art, fully immersing himself in cultivation. Following the guidance of the spirit transformation art, strands of essence qi entered Ningyu's body from his palm before being transferred to his sea of consciousness. In Ningyu's sea of consciousness, There were a total of 4 virtual golden cores. Each virtual golden core had a very large capacity. If he wanted to fill them all, he would have to rely on the spiritual transformation technique. Fortunately, Ningyu had cultivated the spirit transformation method to the 4th level, otherwise, it would have taken a lot of time just to fill the golden core. 2 hours later, Ningyu had filled up all 4 virtual golden cores. After filling up all 4 virtual golden cores, the next step was to cultivate and break through to the true martial realm pinnacle. He sure is patient, to be able to calm his heart down and cultivate at this time. While Ningyu was breaking through to the true martial realm pinnacle, in a certain room in the Ice Mansion's inner mansion, a man was sitting on a chair, his fingers lightly tapping on the table. This man was none other than the Da Xia Kingdom's emperor, Ouyang-ba. Now, I don't want to kill you. If you can help me break the formation at the bottom of the pool, I can spare your life. Ouyang-ba murmured, you may be spared from death, but you cannot escape punishment. When you come out, I will let you follow Haier and accompany him to West Mountain City, Pa. In the Ice Mansion's inner mansion, Ningyu was in the pool. Suddenly, 2 muffled sounds were heard. Then, Ningyu suddenly opened his eyes with a joyful look on his face. After 4 hours of hard work, the yuan qi in 2 of the virtual golden cores had skyrocketed to the limit, and they could no longer contain even a trace of yuan qi. Ningyu was very clear that as long as the remaining 2 virtual golden cores had the same amount of yuan qi as the previous 2, he was 90% sure that he could break through to the true martial realm pinnacle. Pa. After another 4 hours, when 2 muffled sounds were heard, Ningyu split his soul force into 4 and stabbed at the 4 virtual golden cores. Bang! 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 The moment the soul force touched the virtual golden cores, it entered the virtual golden cores. Following that, 4 crisp sounds rang out consecutively. Hoo! Hearing such pleasant sounds, Ningyu let out a long breath. Peak of the true martial realm. At this moment, Ningyu had unsurprisingly advanced to the true martial realm pinnacle. Successfully advancing to the true martial realm pinnacle did not make Ningyu the slightest bit excited. The martial artists he was facing now were either at the primal core realm or the yin-yang realm. He might even encounter martial artists at the yin-yang realm intermediate stage. Therefore, even advancing to the true martial realm pinnacle was not enough to make Ningyu excited. The martial artists he would meet in the future would only get stronger and stronger. Not to mention the true martial realm pinnacle, even the primal core realm cultivation would not be enough. Splash! After advancing to the true martial realm pinnacle, Ningyu separated a wisp of yuan qi and wrapped it around his body, then sank to the bottom of the pool. In fact, when he entered the pool, the Hong Mo sent back a message saying that the light from the golden crystal ball was getting more and more dazzling, and it even had the urge to rush out of the storage ring. It could be said that if the Hong Mo had not firmly controlled the crystal ball, it might have already rushed out of the storage ring. Hong Mo, release the crystal ball. I want to see what it wants to do. As he rushed to the bottom of the pool, Ningyu transmitted his voice to the Hong Mo understood. In the storage ring, the Hong Mo did not want to look at the crystal ball for a long time. Now that Ningyu had spoken, he directly released his control of the crystal ball. Zun Jianwen had reached a critical moment in setting up the array formation. As long as the array formation could be set up properly, it meant that Ningyu would have a few more yin-yang realm fighters. As for the Hong Mo, he was responsible for helping Zun Jianwen set up the array formation. Due to controlling the crystal ball, the Hong Mo did not pay much attention to the array formation, which led to some problems in the array formation. Fortunately, Ningyu had spoken, allowing the Hong Mo to devote himself to setting up the array formation. Swoosh! The crystal ball was out of the Hong Mo's control, like a fish in the sea, and it was abnormally excited. After a short period of excitement, the crystal ball drilled to the bottom of the pool at an extremely shocking speed. The speed of the crystal ball was so fast that even Ningyu couldn't react. Damn it! Ningyu did not expect the crystal ball to be so fast. He cursed in his heart and immediately wrapped yuan qi around his feet. He raised his speed to the limit and chased after the crystal ball. The crystal ball was very fast, but Ningyu, who had advanced to the true martial realm, was not slow either. In just 3 seconds, Ningyu caught up with the crystal ball. F***ck. After catching up with the crystal ball, Ningyu was just about to use a spell to retrieve it, but his eyes were wide open as he stared at the crystal ball in front of him. Chapter 481. Golden box. The crystal ball floated at the bottom of the pool, and there was a red barrier opposite it. Kai. Ningyu separated a bit of his soul power and gradually approached the red barrier. However, when his soul power came into contact with the red barrier, a sizzling sound was heard. Hearing this sizzling sound, Ningyu's expression turned grave. The sizzling sound was the sound of his soul power being devoured. The red barrier can devour soul power. Could it be the array that Wei Zongtian mentioned? Ningyu frowned and fell into deep thought. Wei Zongtian had said that there was a special array at the bottom of the real martial fountain. As long as he broke the array, he would see a box. And that box could only be picked up by the heaven-devouring dog. At that time, Wei Zongtian had specially pointed it out to the Dark Emperor. It shouldn't be. Very quickly, Ningyu rejected the idea in his heart. If the red barrier was the array that Wei Zongtian mentioned, then it meant that this was the real martial fountain. The density of essence at the bottom of the pool was the same as above. Clearly, this was not the real martial fountain. It can devour soul power. Let me try attacking with essence. Ningyu was not someone who was inflexible. Since the red barrier could devour soul power, he would try using essence. Swish. In the next instant, Ningyu wrapped his primordial chi around his wrist and punched out. In an instant, a nearly solid fist light blasted at the barrier at an astonishing speed. Kai. When the fist light came into contact with the red barrier, it was devoured just like the soul power from before. With both essence and soul power devoured, Ningyu was dumbfounded. What the hell is this red barrier? It can actually devour essence and soul power. Swish. Just as Ningyu was at a loss, the crystal ball was activated again and rushed at the red barrier. The barrier can devour essence and soul power. I don't believe what. Seeing the crystal ball rushing toward the red barrier, Ningyu's eyes were filled with disbelief before he could finish his sentence. Crack. The crystal ball seemed to be able to restrain the red barrier. As soon as it came into contact with the red barrier, a gap was blasted open. Moreover, the crystal ball floated on the other side of the red barrier and did not move forward. Waiting for me. Seeing the actions of the crystal ball, Ningyu pointed at his own nose and asked doubtfully. Inside the barrier, the crystal ball moved up and down like a human, as if it was nodding. What the hell, even the crystal ball has become a spirit. Although that was what he said, Ningyu did not stay in place. Instead, he instantly sped up and arrived at the gap in the barrier. After hesitating for a moment, Ningyu gritted his teeth and entered the barrier. Ka. As soon as Ningyu entered the barrier closed again and returned to its original state. At the same time, in a certain room in the ice mansion, Ouyang-Ba raised his eyebrows as a confused look appeared on his face. After some thought, he took out a ball made of a special material. The ball was around the size of a fist, with an obvious crack on its surface. Ningyu has started to crack the formation. At this rate, in less than a day and a night, he'll be able to, The crack on the ball caused Ouyang-Ba to let out an unrestrained smile. However, before he could finish laughing, his expression changed slightly. It was because he realized that the crack on the ball had disappeared. The crack disappeared. Could it be that Ningyu failed to crack the formation? Ouyang-Ba frowned as a confused look appeared on his face. The ball was specially made, and it was related to the red barrier. As long as the red barrier was broken, the ball would shatter completely. The crack just now meant that there was a gap in the red barrier. However, the disappearance of the crack meant that the red barrier had returned to its original state. This doesn't make sense. It's just an external formation. There's no reason why Ningyu couldn't crack it. Ouyang-Ba frowned slightly and mumbled, the red barrier is only a formation that separates the real martial pool from the ice mansion's martial pool. With Ningyu's strength, it's not difficult for him to crack it. Could it be that something went wrong? It was no wonder that Ouyang-Ba was confused. The barrier at the bottom of the pool was personally set up by the ancestor of the imperial family. All he needed to do was to break it with a powerful attack. Why couldn't Ningyu do it? Forget it, let's wait a little longer. Maybe Ningyu is cultivating again. After pondering for a while, Ouyang-ba sat on the chair and closed his eyes. In fact, there was one thing that Ouyang-ba was unaware of. Compared to the time when the ancestor of the imperial family had set up the barrier had undergone a tremendous change. Now, not only could the barrier devour Yuan Qi, it could also devour soul force. Ningyu, this is the real martial pool. Ningyu had no idea of Ouyang-ba's doubts, as he was shocked by the scene before him. As soon as he entered the red barrier, the crystal ball transformed into the illusionary cultivator in front of him. Ningyu was familiar with the illusionary cultivator, who was none other than the first headmaster of Danwu College, Wei Zongtian. Wei Zongtian let out a smile and said, "This is only a projection of me. You don't have to be so surprised. I can only exist for 3 minutes. I'll make it short." Wei Zongtian continued, "Outside the red barrier is the pool of the imperial family. This is the real martial pool." The real martial pool? Ningyu was startled, as he unleashed his divine sense. A moment later, Ningyu withdrew his divine sense. It was true that the Yuan Qi here was a lot denser than the one outside the barrier. The red barrier was set up by the ancestor of the imperial family to separate the real martial pool from the imperial family's pool. Wei Zongtian said, "Why is the red barrier able to devour Yuan Qi and soul force?" Ningyu asked in a confused tone. If the red barrier was only used to separate the two pools, there was no need to set up a barrier that could devour Yuan Qi and soul force. Wouldn't that be a waste of effort? The reason why the barrier can devour Yuan Qi and soul force is because of it. As he spoke, Wei Zongtian's eyes turned cold. He raised his palm and pointed to the ground in the distance. Looking in the direction of Wei Zongtian's palm, Ningyu was a little dumbfounded. This was because all he could see was the ground at the bottom of the martial pool. There was nothing else. Reveal. At this moment, Wei Zongtian bellowed, and a cold beam of light shot out from his sleeve. The cold beam advanced for a distance before disappearing. Buzz. The moment the cold beam disappeared, a palm-sized box appeared where it had been. The box was golden in color, and there were a total of 6 keyholes on its 6 sides. This is the box I told you about in the past. Only the heaven-devouring dog can lift it. Wei Zongtian pointed to the golden box that had appeared on the ground, and his eyes revealed a fervent look. "Didn't you say that there is an array formation at the bottom of the martial pool?" Ningyu asked. "Of course there is an array formation." Chapter 482. Hound Trapping Formation. Hearing Wei Zongtian's words, Ningyu pondered for a moment, then strode forward. On the first step, he did not encounter anything. On the second step, it was the same. When Ningyu took the third step, the situation changed. Whoosh! The liquid in the surroundings started rolling like a raging wave. Then, all of it rushed towards the golden box. Not long after, all the liquid entered the golden box and went into hibernation. The sudden change caused Ningyu to be dumbfounded. He did not expect the box to be able to swallow the liquid in the surroundings. One must know that this was a real martial lake. The liquid in the surroundings contained extremely violent Yuan Qi. If the golden box could swallow all the liquid, didn't that mean that it was an incredible treasure? Moreover, a bold idea appeared in Ningyu's mind. That was, the golden box contained some kind of treasure that could swallow everything. Ningyu, the reason why the red barrier can swallow Yuan Qi and soul power is all because of the golden box, Wei Zongtian said, suppressing the heat in his eyes. Dean Wei, what exactly is in this box? Ningyu frowned. If I say I don't know, will you believe me? Wei Zongtian stared into Ningyu's eyes and said in a low voice. Pretend I didn't ask. Ningyu shrugged and walked towards the golden box. Bang! However, just as Ningyu took a step forward, his expression changed drastically, and he retreated hurriedly. However, Ningyu reacted a little too late. His body was hit by a cold light, and he flew back several feet. He only stabilized himself when he hit the ground. Ningyu, I don't have much time left. You have to think of a way to break this formation, then let that heaven-devouring dog take the golden box away. At this moment, Wei Zongtian's figure gradually became illusory. Before long, Wei Zongtian disappeared completely. The moment before his body disappeared, a soft voice rang in Ningyu's ears. I'll leave this crystal ball with you. Once you get the golden box, it'll take you away from the underground. Ding. Then, a crisp voice was heard. Then, the crystal ball fell to the ground. Ningyu got up and picked up the crystal ball. He looked around but didn't find anything out of the ordinary. Wei Zongtian's illusory body should be attached to this crystal ball. The crystal ball was still the same. This meant that Wei Zongtian had only attached his illusory body to the crystal ball. Otherwise, the crystal ball would have changed greatly. Until now, Ningyu still had some doubts. After obtaining the golden box, how was the crystal ball going to take him underground? Things will eventually sort themselves out. The box is right in front of us. It would be a waste not to take it. Ningyu took a deep breath and put the crystal ball aside for the time being. Then, he began to study the array in front of him. If he wanted to obtain the golden box, he would have to break the array around it. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be able to get close to it. There's a difference between this array and the red barrier. Ningyu split a portion of his perception to probe the array. The result was somewhat disappointing. There was a huge difference between the array and the red barrier. In other words, the array was even more difficult to break than the red barrier. The red barrier could already devour primordial chi and soul power. With Ningyu's current strength, it would be very difficult to break the array that was even more difficult to break. What should I do? Staring at the golden box a few meters away, Ningyu's expression was solemn as he began to ponder. If he wanted to obtain the golden box, he had to break the array. However, the array in front of him was impenetrable. It could devour primordial chi and soul power. Ningyu didn't want to give up because of this. After all, there must be some kind of precious treasure in the golden box. If he guessed correctly, the treasure in the box must be related to the heaven-devouring dog. That's right. Suddenly, Ningyu raised his eyebrows as if he had thought of a countermeasure. Dark Emperor, hurry up and come out. Ningyu directly communicated with the Dark Emperor and told him to come out of the storage ring. Swish. Hearing Ningyu's call, the Dark Emperor directly rushed out of the storage ring. Ningyu, are you going to let me sleep? Let me tell you, if I... Holy F***. After coming out, the Dark Emperor was a little unhappy. He rubbed his sleepy eyes and was just about to scold Ningyu when his eyes widened so much that his eyeballs were about to fall to the ground. Why didn't you call me out earlier if you had such a good treasure? The Dark Emperor rolled his eyes at Ningyu and grumbled for a while. Then, he rose from the ground and rushed toward the golden box. Seeing the Dark Emperor's actions, Ningyu did not stop him. Instead, he crossed his arms and stared at the Dark Emperor with interest. Bam! Holy F***. Without Ningyu's reminder, the outcome was obvious. The Dark Emperor was struck by the cold light, and his body was pushed back to the edge of the red barrier before stabilizing. After stabilizing, the Dark Emperor directly cursed and said angrily, Ningyu, why the F***ck didn't you tell me that there was a dog trapping formation here? Dog trapping formation? Ningyu was slightly taken aback. He then asked, what is a dog trapping formation? Don't talk about dog trapping formation first. Tell me why there isn't. The Dark Emperor seemed to not hear Ningyu's doubts and waved his hand. Shut up. If you want to get the golden box, you have to break this dog trapping formation that you mentioned. Ningyu interrupted the Dark Emperor and berated. Humph. We'll talk about this later. The Dark Emperor clearly bore a grudge against Ningyu and harumphed coldly. The so-called dog trapping formation is a formation that specializes in trapping heaven-devouring hounds. There's such a formation? Ningyu was taken aback. That's right. The Dark Emperor nodded and said disdainfully, the world is full of extraordinary things. There are many things that you don't know. If there's anything you don't understand, you can ask your bang. Before the Dark Emperor could finish his sentence, Ningyu kicked his butt and said in a deep voice, "Hurry up and break the dog trapping formation. I'm afraid that old man Ouyang will come here if we delay any further. F***ck, how dare you kick me?" The Dark Emperor was sent flying as soon as he stood up. He let out a roar and tried to reason with Ningyu. However, when he saw Ningyu's gloomy expression, the Dark Emperor immediately became listless. He spread his hands and said, "The trapping dog formation is a formation that specifically targets the heaven-devouring dog clan. It's very difficult for me to break it." "Even you can't break the dog trapping formation?" Ningyu's face turned ugly. If even the Dark Emperor had no way to break the formation, it would be difficult for him to break it today. The dog trapping formation could devour soul force and vitality. It had sealed everything that Ningyu could do. What else could he use to break it? Wrong. The Dark Emperor waved his paw and said proudly, "It's not difficult to break the dog trapping formation." "Not difficult? What do you mean?" Ningyu asked. Chapter 483. Vitality. A large amount of soul power and vitality. Ningyu was stunned at first, then he said, "How much soul power and vitality do you need?" "Not much." The Dark Emperor shrugged and said, "In terms of soul power, I only need a martial artist whose soul power is at the peak of the 7th grade to help me. As for vitality," at this point, the Dark Emperor paused for a moment and continued, "Just give me a few 100,000 supreme grade origin crystals." Swoosh. Hearing the Dark Emperor's words, Ningyu's eyes widened and were filled with confusion. He could find martial artists whose soul power was at the peak of the 7th grade. After all, Zun Jianwen and the Hall Master's soul power met the requirements. However, the Dark Emperor needed a few 100,000 supreme grade origin crystals. What the hell? He thought that supreme grade origin crystals were cheap. If he needed a few 100,000 supreme grade origin crystals to break the formation, then to Ningyu, it was fine even if he did not break the formation. "I can satisfy you as a peak of the 7th grade, but I can't get you a few 100,000 supreme grade origin crystals," Ningyu said in a deep voice. "Stingy, don't think I don't know that there are still 800,000 supreme grade origin crystals in your storage ring." The Dark Emperor curled his lips and said, "How about this? Give me another 400,000 transcendent grade origin crystal. I only need 400,000 transcendent grade origin crystal to easily break the formation and obtain that golden box." "Bargaining with me?" Ningyu pointed at his nose and took a step forward, as if he was about to leave. However, the Dark Emperor did not seem to fall for this. He laid on the ground and lazily fanned his ears. "Don't waste your energy. The red barrier can devour vitality and soul power. With your current strength, it's basically impossible to break it." The Dark Emperor looked at Ningyu and said calmly, 300,000 supreme grade origin crystals, this is the lowest I can afford, ouch." However, before the Dark Emperor could finish his sentence, he screamed and jumped up from the ground. Then, the Dark Emperor touched his butt and said angrily, "Ningyu, if you dare to kick my butt again, I will teach you a lesson. I'm good looking, I don't need your help." Ningyu shrugged, and then he stretched out a finger and said, 100,000 transcendent grade origin crystals. "I'll give you 100,000 transcendent grade origin crystals at most. Tell me if you're able to break the formation or not." "Deal," the Dark Emperor said hurriedly when he saw Ningyu's expression. He was afraid that he would not even be able to obtain 100,000 transcendent grade origin crystals. "I'll say the ugly words first. After we break the formation, the golden box inside belongs to me." Ningyu knew the Dark Emperor's personality, so he decided to make things clear with the Dark Emperor first, in case he went back on his word. "No." The Dark Emperor seemed to know what was in the golden box. He shook his head and said, "The things in the golden box belong to me. Treat it as me owing you a favor. Your favor isn't worth much." At this moment, Ningyu was the one who calmed down. From the Dark Emperor's reaction, the golden box definitely didn't contain anything ordinary. It might be related to the heaven-swallowing dog. Ningyu felt that it was worth it to use 100,000 transcendent grade origin crystals to exchange for the heaven-swallowing dog's treasure. "Ningyu, you can't do that." The things in the golden box are very important to me. The Dark Emperor looked anxious. 50,000 transcendent grade origin crystals. I only need 50,000. 40,000. 30,000. Damn it. The Dark Emperor cursed and raged. 10,000 transcendent grade origin crystals. This is my limit. Any less and I won't be able to break the formation. Hehe, at least you know what's good for you. Ningyu smiled. Break the formation first. If the things in the box are really important to you, I won't fight with you. Shoo. With that, Ningyu flicked his sleeves and a storage bag flew towards the Dark Emperor. Piak. Catching the storage bag firmly, the Dark Monarch activated his perception and dived into the storage bag. When he saw the 20,000 transcendent grade origin crystals in the storage bag, the Dark Emperor cried in regret. Zun Jianwen, are you done setting up the formation? After tossing the storage bag to the Dark Emperor, Ningyu communicated with Zun Jianwen. Can you stop for a moment and help the Dark Emperor break the dog trapping formation? Give me 3 more hours. I'll be able to set up the formation in 3 hours. Inside the storage ring, Zun Jianwen wore a solemn expression after hearing Ningyu's words. He said in a serious tone, once the formation is set up, it will only take 2 hours to get rid of the unique smell on the Hall Master and the others. So fast. Ningyu's mouth opened slightly in disbelief. He heard from Zun Jianwen that it would take 3 days to set up the formation and a large amount of origin crystals. It seemed like only a day had passed. Why was Zun Jianwen almost done setting up the formation? I used supreme grade origin crystals. Zun Jianwen's voice sounded in Ningyu's mind in a timely manner. 5 million supreme grade origin crystals were not enough. At the critical moment of setting up the formation, you were competing with Li Tongtian and the others to refine the true martial pills. I asked the Hong Mo for his opinion and used 300,000 supreme grade origin crystals. Holy F***CK. Ningyu could not help but swear and hurriedly put his perception into the storage ring. If he hadn't seen it, he wouldn't have known, but the moment he did, he was shocked. Apart from the 20,000 transcendent grade origin crystals given to the Dark Emperor, there were only 480,000 origin crystals left in the storage ring. Ningyu's eyes widened and he even had the urge to slap Zun Jianwen. However, Ningyu endured it because he saw that the Hong Mo was also in the formation. To be precise, he was in the formation that was not set up yet. Zun Jianwen, I'll wait for you for 8 hours. Let's see if you can get rid of the smell of the Hall Master and the others. Ningyu took a deep breath and shouted in a deep voice, you should be well aware of the consequences if you fail. Dark Emperor. The next moment, Ningyu sent a voice transmission to the Dark Emperor, don't break this formation first. Go into the storage ring and watch Zun Jianwen. 30,000 supreme grade origin crystals. The Dark Emperor was not a fool. He could take this opportunity to ask for some supreme grade origin crystals. After all, it would be a waste not to ask for them. I knew you wanted origin crystals. Ningyu's expression changed and he raised his right leg, wanting to kick the Dark Emperor's butt. This time, the Dark Emperor was already prepared. When Ningyu raised his right leg, his body turned into a shadow and entered the storage ring. At the same time, a soft voice sounded in Ningyu's ears. You should pay more attention to the crystal ball. It's giving me a sense of danger. The Dark Emperor's voice caused Ningyu's brows to raise as he hurriedly turned his gaze to the crystal ball not far away. Ever since Wei Zongtian left, the crystal ball had been waiting by his side and did not show any signs of abnormality. Could the Dark Emperor be messing with me? Suddenly, a wisp of gloominess appeared in Ningyu's eyes. Chapter 484. Attacking the array formation discovered me. Inside the crystal ball, a miniature figure raised his eyebrows and muttered, impossible. The crystal ball's material is extremely special. Unless it is a peak yin-yang realm martial artist, it would be very hard to discover me hiding inside. If Ningyu saw this figure, he would definitely be greatly astonished. Because this figure was none other than Wei Zongtian. More accurately, it was a miniature version of Wei Zongtian. For the sake of obtaining the golden box, Wei Zongtian had handed the crystal ball to Ningyu when he was at Danwu College. It was just that he had left 2 cards on the crystal ball. The first was the illusory figure to explain the array formation to Ningyu, as well as to help Ningyu blast a hole in the red barrier. The second was to hide in the crystal ball. However, what was hidden in the crystal ball was not Wei Zongtian's actual body but just an illusory figure. Even so, the illusory figure's combat prowess was very strong, so strong that it could easily kill an early-stage yin-yang realm martial artist. This array formation is very hard to break. If Ningyu wants to break it, he will probably need the help of that heaven-swallowing hound. Wei Zongtian said sullenly, "I'll watch for now, see how Ningyu and that heaven-swallowing hound will break the array formation." Wei Zongtian simply did not consider the possibility of him being exposed. Instead, he stared at Ningyu through the crystal ball. Who? On the other hand, Ningyu took a deep breath, great waves surging in his heart. Although he was very shocked in his heart, Ningyu did not show it on his face. There is definitely someone in the crystal ball. If I did not guess wrongly, it should be Wei Zongtian, Ningyu said sullenly. The crystal ball was handed to Ningyu by Wei Zongtian. Earlier, Wei Zongtian had appeared in the crystal ball once again. Considering all these factors, it made sense that the vitality in the crystal ball was Wei Zongtian. Forget it. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. There are still 6 hours before Zun Jianwen finishes setting up the formation. I can use these 6 hours to cultivate and stabilize my cultivation. Now, Ningyu's cultivation was at the peak of the true martial realm. However, this peak of the true martial realm was a little vague, which meant that it had yet to be completely stabilized. 3 hours was enough for Ningyu to completely stabilize his cultivation at the peak of the true martial realm. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, 2 hours passed. Neither Ningyu nor the Wei Zongtian in the crystal ball moved. 2 hours passed. Ningyu raised his eyelids slightly, then closed them again. As for Wei Zongtian in the crystal ball, his expression grew increasingly grave. In the end, he could not help but clench his fists tightly. Voila! Time flew, and when the 6th hour passed, Ningyu suddenly opened his eyes. By now, Zun Jianwen should have finished setting up the formation. Ningyu sent a wisp of his perception into his storage ring. Rise. As soon as Ningyu's perception entered the storage ring, he saw Zun Jianwen raise his hands and shout in a low voice. Following Zun Jianwen's shout, a huge formation was formed in an instant. The alchemist hall master, Wang Heibo, and the others sat in the middle of the formation. Whoosh! After the formation was set up, Zun Jianwen did not stay idle. His figure flashed and he sat in the middle of the formation with the alchemist hall master and the others. Kai kai kai. Following that, 3 sizzling sounds rang out in succession. Inside the formation, Ma Wei and the other 2 yin-yang realm early-stage martial artists' bodies instantly emitted a gas. When the gas came into contact with the outer layer of the formation, it made a sizzling sound. At this moment, the Yin Corpse sect smell on Ma Wei and the other 2 yin-yang realm martial artists' bodies was completely expelled. Kai. 15 minutes later, the smell on Zun Jianwen's body was also expelled. Kai. Another hour passed, and the smell on the alchemist hall master's body was also completely expelled. Zun Jianwen, you did well. Even though Ningyu was mentally prepared, he couldn't help but reveal a look of excitement when he saw Zun Jianwen's success. The alchemist hall master's cultivation was at the peak of yin-yang realm late stage, Wang Heibo's cultivation was at the middle stage, and Ma Wei and the others were at the early stage of yin-yang realm. The Yin Corpse sect smell on their bodies had been expelled, and coupled with the appearance-changing technique, it would be harder for ordinary martial artists to recognize them. Zun Jianwen, you guys rest here for a while. I will contact you immediately if I need anything. With that said, Ningyu withdrew his perception from the storage ring. Whoosh! At the same time, the Dark Emperor also retreated from the storage ring. As for the Hong Mo, Ningyu didn't let him out. Instead, he left him in the storage ring so that he could pass on a message. After stabilizing his body, the Dark Emperor spread out his hands. I've already said that to break the formation, I need a large amount of soul force and yuan qi. What do you want me to do now? In fact, it was no wonder that the Dark Emperor complained. When he came out of the storage ring, Ningyu told the Dark Emperor that he only had Yuan Qi and no soul force. The dog trapping formation was an extremely brilliant formation. Without the support of soul force, it was very difficult to break it by relying on Yuan Qi alone. In other words, it was basically impossible to succeed. Use my soul force, Ningyu said solemnly. It was very likely that Wei Zhongtian was inside the crystal ball. If he let Zun Jianwen out at this time, wouldn't it be over if Wei Zhongtian noticed something? Although the special smell on Zun Jianwen and the others had been dispelled, they hadn't changed their appearances yet. Only after changing their appearances would Ningyu dare to let them out in broad daylight. Use your soul force. The Dark Emperor frowned. Your soul force is only at the peak of grade 5. That's right. With that, the Dark Emperor raised his brows and hurriedly said, your control over your soul is extremely adept, you might really be able to help. Ningyu, release your soul force. In the next moment, the Dark Emperor said solemnly, leave half in my body and the other half on my palm. Ningyu didn't know what the Dark Emperor was up to, but he still released his soul force and wrapped it around the Dark Emperor's palm. No, it should be called a claw. Go. Lowering his head to look at the violent soul force on his palm, the Dark Emperor took out the storage bag that Ningyu had given him and threw it towards the formation in front of him. Explode. Accompanied by the Dark Emperor's low roar, a shocking explosion resounded in the area. Rumble. In order to loosen the formation, the Dark Emperor used 30,000 transcendent-grade yuan crystals, causing them to explode in front of the formation. Using the explosion of transcendent-grade yuan crystals to break the formation, it shouldn't be. Looking at the exploding transcendent-grade yuan crystals, Ningyu frowned slightly and wanted to retreat. Ningyu, don't just stand there. Quickly release the remaining half of your soul force and break this formation with me. At this moment, the Dark Emperor's voice rang out in the area. Hearing the Dark Emperor's words, Ningyu was a little stunned. However, this kind of daze only lasted for 0.1 seconds before it was stopped by Ningyu. Chapter 485. Profit from the third party. Ha. This array can devour soul power and vitality. It will be very difficult to break it with such a method. In the crystal ball, Wei Zhongtian frowned slightly and said doubtfully, when we were at the Danwu College's martial pool, Ningyu could break the formation inside. Why did he break this formation? What? However, before Wei Zhongtian's words had even left his mouth, he saw something that shocked him. Not far away, fine cracks appeared on the surface of the formation that had been bombarded by the explosion of 30,000 transcendent-grade essence crystals. Ningyu and the Dark Emperor seized the opportunity to land a claw and a punch on the crack. 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 Suddenly, 2 crisp cracking sounds rang out in the area, sounding extremely ear-piercing. Ningyu, inject all your primordial qi into your wrist. Don't hold back. Placing his claws on the light barrier of the dog-trapping formation, the Dark Emperor shouted, success or failure depends on this. Understood. Ningyu took a deep breath, and then the yuan qi in the 4 illusory golden cores burst out, pouring into his wrist. His yuan qi is actually so dense. Inside the crystal ball, when Wei Zhongtian saw the berserk essence surging out from Ningyu's sea of consciousness, his eyes involuntarily widened and a grave expression appeared on his face. Originally, he had only treated Ningyu as an ordinary core disciple of the Sacred Institute of Danwu College. He didn't expect Ningyu to have such powerful vital energy. One must know that when he first met Ningyu in the Danwu pool, Ningyu's essence qi was far less dense than now. In just a few short days, Ningyu's essence qi had increased to such an extent. If he were to continue cultivating at this speed, it wouldn't be long before Ningyu could sweep away all the students in Danwu College. After that, Wei Zhongtian shook his head and said, even though the essence is rather dense, it will take some time to break the formation. Crack. The moment Wei Zhongtian's voice rang out, a melodious voice resounded in the area once again. Ningyu and the Dark Emperor blasted a hole in the light barrier around the formation. Shio. After that, Ningyu and the Dark Emperor's figures flashed and entered the formation. How is this possible? As Wei Zhongtian watched the Dark Emperor and Ningyu enter the formation, his mouth gaped open, a dumbfounded expression on his face. Compared to possessing valiant essence, the shock that Ningyu had given Wei Zongtian was extremely great. The dog-trapping formation could devour Yuan Qi and soul force. Why was Ningyu and the Dark Emperor able to enter the formation? It seemed that they were fine and had not been affected at all. Dark Emperor, Wei Zongtian said that only you can lift this golden box. Inside the formation, Ningyu and the Dark Emperor stood side by side. Ningyu did not have any intention of taking the golden box. Instead, he gave this opportunity to the Dark Emperor. It's better if you take it. This is the dog-trapping formation. My strength will drop by at least 80% in here. The Dark Emperor said, with only 20% of my strength left, it's impossible for me to pick up that golden box. Ningyu stared at the Dark Emperor and frowned. Did the sun rise from the west today? Why didn't the Dark Emperor take the golden box? Could it be that there was something terrifying around the golden box? There must be a trap, there must be a trap. Thinking of this, Ningyu took a deep breath and released his perception, probing the surroundings of the box. After a while, Ningyu retracted his perception. At the same time, his brows furrowed. Even though Ningyu's perception was so powerful, he did not find any clues around the box. Not finding any clues did not mean that there was no danger. Dark Emperor, stop playing dumb with me. Hurry up and tell me what's around the box. Ningyu glanced at the crystal ball from the corner of his eye and said, after getting the box, we still have to leave this place. All right, I'll tell you. The Dark Emperor took a step forward and arrived beside Ningyu. He whispered into Ningyu's ear. After saying that, the Dark Emperor took a step back and said to Ningyu, I wish you good luck. Get the golden box first. The rest is not something we can control. Understood. Ningyu's expression was solemn. He stomped on the ground and charged towards the golden box at an extremely shocking speed. Swish, 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 swish. Just as Ningyu arrived beside the golden box, 6 cold lights shot out from 6 directions, all of them piercing towards Ningyu's head. The speed of these cold lights was very fast, even half a beat faster than Ningyu. Furthermore, Ningyu could feel an extremely powerful devouring force from the cold lights. If he was unlucky enough to be struck by the 6 cold lights, even if he wasn't killed, he would be devoured into a dried-up corpse. Swish. However, just as the 6 cold lights were about to reach Ningyu, the Dark Emperor's eyes lit up and his body shot out like a spring. The speed that the Dark Emperor unleashed in that instant was actually comparable to a pinnacle yin-yang realm martial artist. In an instant, the Dark Emperor arrived beside the golden box and extended his claws, grabbing at the golden box. Swish. However, the golden box seemed to know that the Dark Emperor was going to grab it. It actually leaped up and flew into the distance. F***ck, it's a spirit. Even though the Dark Emperor knew what was in the box, he couldn't help but cry out. Crack. The golden box was extremely fast and arrived at the edge of the formation in an instant. Then, under the shocked gazes of Ningyu and the Dark Emperor, the golden box easily broke through the hound trapping formation. Isn't this too easy? Seeing how the golden box broke through the hound trapping formation so easily, everyone, including Wei Zongtian, was dumbfounded. Oh no. However, Ningyu didn't stay in a daze for too long. He immediately took out the absolute soul sword and slashed out several sword rays. Pust pust pust. When the sword rays and the cold lights came into contact, a series of sizzling sounds erupted. It was obvious that the cold lights were much more powerful than the sword rays. After all, the cold lights had an extremely powerful devouring ability. The moment the sword rays came into contact with the cold lights, they were devoured by the cold lights. Damn it! Cursing under his breath, Ningyu turned around and ran. What a joke! Although Ningyu could block the 6 cold lights that contained a powerful devouring ability, he didn't want to do that. Because blocking these cold lights would consume too much of Ningyu's energy. He had to use all his trump cards to block them completely. Good timing. After the golden box broke through the hound trapping formation, it charged toward the red barrier. It was obvious that the golden box wanted to leave this place, And the direction that the golden box was heading toward happened to be where the crystal ball was, which was also where Wei Zongtian was. Seeing the golden box flying toward him, Wei Zongtian laughed loudly and hurriedly controlled the crystal ball to fly into the air. Whoosh! Moreover, the crystal ball instantly grew in size, firmly blocking the golden box's path. Come in. Wei Zongtian had been waiting for this moment. When it came, he naturally wouldn't show any mercy. Chapter 486. Success. Dark Emperor, help me block the 6 cold beams behind me. I'll go snatch the golden box. Seeing the crystal ball grow bigger, Ningyu's eyes turned cold as he shouted in a low voice. Ningyu was very clear that Wei Zongtian was hiding in the crystal ball, and Wei Zongtian's action was also to obtain the golden box. But how could Ningyu let him have his way? He had gone through so much trouble and almost died in the palace, all for the treasure in the golden box. Wei Zongtian wanted to freeload, but Ningyu would never allow it. Even if Wei Zongtian was the first dean of Danwu College, he could not. Ningyu, don't panic. The Dark Emperor clearly did not take Ningyu's worries to heart. He waved his hand and said indifferently, "It won't be that easy for the crystal ball to swallow the golden box." Huh! Hearing the Dark Emperor's words, Ningyu raised his eyebrows and looked at the crystal ball. Ningyu had just shifted his gaze when he saw the crystal ball being struck by the golden box and falling backward. Seeing how the crystal ball could not withstand a single blow, Ningyu was dumbfounded and a little stunned. Not good. However, just as Ningyu was in a daze, the 6 cold beams had already arrived in front of him and blasted towards his chest. Revolving wheel. At the crucial moment, Ningyu quickly gathered the essence in his sea of consciousness to his wrist and pushed out with his palm. Ningyu, don't use your soul power and essence. Use your physical strength to resist these cold beams. The Dark Emperor seemed to be more familiar with these cold beams. When he saw that Ningyu was about to execute the revolving wheel palm, he immediately shouted a reminder. Physical strength. Ningyu was slightly stunned. He immediately gritted his teeth and retracted the essence and soul power in his palm. In the next moment, Ningyu punched out. Kai. His fist collided with the first ray of cold light. Ningyu felt a huge force coming from his fist, causing his fist to feel slightly numb. Although his fist was numb, the first ray of cold light was dispersed. It's indeed effective. With one successful move, Ningyu threw out 5 consecutive punches. Kai. 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 Following that, 5 consecutive kai-kai sounds rang out. Unsurprisingly, the 5 rays of cold light were all dispersed by Ningyu's fist. On the other hand, Ningyu's fist had turned blood red, and blood was oozing out of it. These minor injuries were nothing to Ningyu. He completely ignored the blood oozing out from his fist. His eyes were fixed on the crystal ball that had fallen to the ground and the golden box that was floating in front of the red barrier. After repelling the crystal ball, the golden box did not leave immediately. Instead, it hovered in front of the red barrier. It was as if the golden box was afraid of the other side of the red barrier. Damn it! In the crystal ball, Wei Zongtian's face was ashen. He did not expect the golden box to have such a powerful attack. He nearly failed miserably. When the golden box flew towards him, he thought that the golden box was already in his bag. He thought that he could easily keep the golden box. Who would have thought that the golden box would explode with a powerful attack, causing the crystal ball to fall to the ground and nearly shatter? It seems like only the heaven-devouring dog can pick up the golden box. Wei Zongtian's face was gloomy. From Ningyu's performance earlier, Ningyu also wanted the golden box. If the golden box was obtained by the Dark Emperor, it was very likely that he would hand it over to Ningyu. Once Ningyu obtained the item in the golden box, it would be very difficult for him to take it back. What should I do? Wei Zongtian's eyes moved rapidly as he thought of a countermeasure. Swoosh! At this moment, the Dark Emperor rose from the ground and charged towards the golden box at a shocking speed. The first time he did not grab the golden box, the Dark Emperor had been holding his breath. Now that he saw the golden box stopping, the Dark Emperor felt that his chance had come. Woof woof woof. Before the Dark Emperor could reach the golden box, a few anxious sounds rang in Ningyu's ears. These sounds were obviously the barking of dogs. "You want me to save you?" Ningyu asked tentatively. "Woof woof." The dog barked again. "If you want me to save you, bark once. If you don't want to, bark twice." Ningyu said softly. "Woof. F*ck. It really is as the Dark Emperor said, it has become a spirit." Ningyu could not help but curse and shouted at the Dark Emperor, "Dark Emperor, come back first." "What's going on?" The Dark Emperor was about to reach the golden box when he heard Ningyu's call. He immediately stopped and turned to look at Ningyu in confusion. "Let go of that box and let me do it." After saying that, Ningyu wrapped his essence around his ankle and took a step forward, appearing beside the golden box in an instant. "Pa!" Immediately, Ningyu reached out with his right hand and grabbed the golden box firmly. Seeing Ningyu grab the golden box, Wei Zongqian's mouth opened slightly in the crystal ball, his face filled with disbelief. Didn't they say that only the heaven-devouring dog could pick up the golden box? Why can Ningyu pick it up? Ningyu, how did he do it? Wei Zongqian was very confused and could be said to be completely dumbfounded. "I'll have to trouble you first. Stay in the storage ring." On the other side, after Ningyu grabbed the golden box, he threw it into the storage ring. After doing all this, Ningyu clapped his hands and said to the Dark Emperor, "The golden box is in our hands. We can leave this place now." Yes, let's leave this place quickly." The Dark Emperor came back to his senses and flew out hurriedly. However, when the Dark Emperor arrived before the red barrier, he stopped and frowned. "With our strength, it should be very difficult to break this red barrier, right?" Woof woof. As soon as the Dark Emperor said that, a barking sound rang in Ningyu's mind. Immediately, a message was sent to Ningyu's head. Ningyu closed his eyes slightly and recalled the message in his head. He could not help but reveal a smile. "Follow me." In the next instant, Ningyu took a step forward and arrived before the red barrier. Ningyu waved his hands continuously and a few palm prints were formed. "Go." As Ningyu bellowed, a few palm prints were instantly activated and blasted towards the red barrier. Crack, crack, crack. When the palm prints came into contact with the red barrier, a small gap was blasted out almost instantly. "Let's go." Ningyu took a step forward and dashed out of the red barrier. Swoosh. Behind Ningyu, the Dark Emperor did not hesitate and took a step forward and followed closely. Swoosh. As for Wei Zongqian, he hesitated for a second before controlling the crystal ball and dashing out of the red barrier. Crack crack. After Ningyu and the others dashed out of the red barrier, the gap that appeared in the red barrier closed up again and returned to its original state. Pa. At the same time, in a certain room in the Ice Mansion. Chapter 487. Chapter 487, Celebration Ningyu. Let's hurry up and leave before anything happens. After leaving the red barrier, the Dark Emperor said hurriedly. The Dark Emperor's thoughts were simple: get the golden box and leave quickly. After all, this was the palace. If an expert were to notice this place, the consequences would be dire. Therefore, the Dark Emperor's first thought was to leave and get as far away from this place as possible. There's no hurry. There's still quite a few hours before the day and night ends. If we leave now, we'll be making a fool of ourselves. Ningyu waved his hand and said in a deep voice, "Dark Emperor, enter the storage ring first. Without my permission, you can't come out no matter what." "All right, up to you." The Dark Emperor knew that once Ningyu made a decision, no matter how much he interfered, Ningyu would not change his mind. In any case, he wanted to see the golden box. Entering the storage ring was in line with his thoughts. Swoosh. In the next instant, the Dark Emperor turned into an afterimage and entered the storage ring. Just as the Dark Emperor entered the storage ring, Ningyu's figure flashed and he arrived beside the crystal ball. After hesitating for a moment, Ningyu reached out and grabbed the crystal ball. "I've already obtained the golden box. You're useless now." Ningyu knew very well that one of Wei Zongqian's afterimages or clones was in the crystal ball. He did not dare to keep the crystal ball on him anymore. With Wei Zongqian's ability, Wouldn't it be very dangerous if he discovered his secret? Therefore, Ningyu suddenly exerted force with his wrist and threw the crystal ball out of the pool. Whoosh! Although this was the bottom of the pool, Ningyu's strength was extremely great. In almost an instant, the crystal ball was thrown out of the pool and landed on the ground beside the pool. Swoosh! However, just as the crystal ball landed on the ground, a figure flashed past and arrived beside the pool. Looking at the crystal ball on the ground, the figure frowned and revealed a puzzled expression. What is this? The figure moved and picked up the crystal ball on the ground, sizing it up. After a while, the figure put the crystal ball into his arms, intending to take it back and study it carefully. I wonder what Ningyu is doing at the bottom of the pond. Ouyang-ba stared at the pond with a frown. That's right, the figure who had suddenly appeared was none other than Ouyang-ba. Ever since the ball cracked open for the second time, Ouyang-ba had been infuriated. He had decided to check it out personally. Unexpectedly, as soon as he appeared, he saw the crystal ball fly out of the pool. Shoo! After pondering for a moment, Ouyang-ba split a portion of his senses into the pool. Ouyang-ba's intention was very simple. He wanted to see what Ningyu was doing. Cultivating. When Ouyang-ba saw Ningyu cultivating diligently, his brows furrowed into the shape of the character Chuan. Logically speaking, Ningyu should be trying to break the red barrier. Why did he start cultivating again? Furthermore, Ouyang-ba discovered that Ningyu's cultivation had advanced from the late stage of the true martial realm to the peak stage of the true martial realm. There must be something that he had not noticed. There are still a few more hours before the day and night ends. I'll stay here and see what Ningyu is up to. Ouyang-ba glanced at the red barrier again. When he discovered that the red barrier was still intact, he decided to stay here. Hehe, I've already got the golden box. Even if you stay here until the end of time, you won't find anything. At the bottom of the pond, Ningyu could clearly sense Ouyang-ba's senses sweeping across the place without any scruples. However, Ningyu did not take it to heart. Since he had already obtained the golden box, it did not matter how Ouyang-ba tried to investigate as long as it did not pose any threat to him. Buzz buzz. At the bottom of the pond, Ningyu began cultivating with the spiritual technique. Ningyu did not want to waste a few hours. He first spent an hour stabilizing his cultivation at the peak stage of the true martial realm. In the remaining time, Ningyu began to crazily absorb the qi from his surroundings. The qi inside the illusionary golden cores had reached saturation. If he were to absorb more, it was highly possible that they would split apart. Currently, Ningyu had 4 illusionary golden cores. Once they all split apart, Ningyu would have 8 illusionary golden cores. With each additional illusionary golden core, Ningyu's strength would improve significantly. As long as all 4 illusionary golden cores were split apart, even if he did not advance to the origin core realm, Ningyu was confident that he could defeat an intermediate yin-yang realm martial artist. Bang! Half an hour later, a dull thud was heard, followed by one of the illusionary golden cores exploding and splitting into 2. This is going to work. The first illusionary golden core successfully split apart, giving Ningyu a boost of confidence, causing his face to be filled with joy. Bang! Bang! Once there was one, there would be a second and a third. Not long after, the second and third illusionary golden cores in Ningyu's sea of consciousness suddenly exploded, each splitting into a golden core. There are still 4 hours before the deadline. I can definitely split the last illusionary golden core successfully. The first 3 illusionary golden cores were successfully split apart, which made Ningyu very satisfied. In the next moment, Ningyu hurriedly circulated the spirit transformation technique to the extreme, crazily absorbing the qi in the pool and injecting it into the illusionary golden core in his sea of consciousness that had yet to split apart. What's going on? However, the last illusionary golden core seemed to be affected by something. No matter how much Ningyu absorbed the qi, it could not be split apart. Since it could not be split apart, Ningyu simply stopped and carefully examined the illusionary golden core. After examining it for a while, Ningyu absorbed the qi again, wanting to complete the last illusionary golden core's division. Time's up. However, when Ouyang-ba's voice rang in Ningyu's ears, he still did not split the last illusionary golden core into two. Whoosh! Ningyu was already very satisfied that the 3 illusionary golden cores were successfully split apart. Now that the time was up, there was no need for Ningyu to stay any longer. He immediately leapt up and rushed out of the pool. Splash! Not long after, Ningyu arrived at the edge of the pool and stood still. Ningyu, you've advanced to the peak of the true martial realm? Seeing Ningyu coming out of the pool, Ouyang-ba exclaimed in surprise. Humph! Didn't you already know that I've advanced to the peak of the true martial realm? Why are you still pretending? Hearing Ouyang-ba's words, Ningyu let out a humph secretly. However, Ningyu only thought about it in his heart and did not say it out loud. After all, Ouyang-ba was the emperor of the Great Xia Kingdom. It was not very kind of him to say that in front of him. Your Majesty, it's all thanks to this pool that I was able to advance to the peak of the true martial realm. Ningyu pointed at the pool and said. Ha ha ha. Ouyang-ba burst out laughing and said, anyway, it's a great thing to be able to advance to the peak of the true martial realm. Let's go. I've already set up a banquet in the guest hall to celebrate for you. Celebrate for me? Ningyu was startled at first, before he asked doubtfully, I've only advanced to the peak of the true martial realm. I'm afraid it's unnecessary to celebrate for me. Of course it's not for you. Apart from you, there's also Li Tongtian and the others. Ouyang-ba waved his hand and said in an unquestionable tone, let's go. Chapter 488. Welcome. The Royal Palace's guest hall was located to the west of the Ice Mansion. It was specially used to welcome the royal guests. There were a total of 3 guest halls. The first was the guest hall. Only those of high status or powerful martial artists had the right to enter. The second was the Silver Hall. Martial artists of slightly lower status than those in the guest hall, but all of them were respected figures in the capital. The third was the Bronze Hall. The original purpose of the welcoming Copper Hall was to target the young experts of the capital. Anyone of the younger generation whose cultivation had reached the Yuan Dan stage had the qualifications to enter the welcoming Copper Hall. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At this moment, 3 martial artists suddenly appeared in front of the Bronze Hall. Third Prince, the Emperor sent you to the Bronze Hall. I guess he has an important mission for you. Among the 3 martial artists, one was at the pinnacle of the martial realm, one was at the late primal core realm, and the last was at the pinnacle of the primal core realm. The pinnacle of the primal core martial artist smiled. You must grasp this opportunity. This may be the most crucial moment in your fight for the position of Crown Prince. That's right. I asked around before coming. The Emperor did not send the first prince or the 6th prince. He must have something to tell you, the late primal core martial artist agreed. Compete. What important mission? The 3rd prince, Ouyang-hai, snorted. If I'm not wrong, it must be about West Mountain City. West Mountain City. Upon hearing Ouyang-hai's words, the late and pinnacle of the primal core realm martial artists all revealed serious expressions. West Mountain City was not a good place. With Ouyang-hai's strength, unless he brought a few Yin-Yang realm martial artists with him, he would not even know how he died in West Mountain City. Whoosh! At this moment, a figure flew past and landed steadily in front of Ouyang-hai. Li Tongtian. Seeing the figure that suddenly appeared, Ouyang-hai's expression changed. Why are you here? Why can't I be here? Turn around and see what this place is. Ouyang-hai pursed his lips and pointed behind Ouyang-hai. Where? Ouyang-hai frowned. The guest hall, Li Tongtian shrugged. Damn it. Being looked down upon by Li Tongtian, Ouyang-hai was so angry that his entire body was trembling. He even wanted to make a move on Li Tongtian. But he knew the difference between him and Li Tongtian, so he could only endure. Initially, he thought that Ouyang-ba had only asked him to come over. Who would have thought that Li Tongtian would come over as well? Other than Li Tongtian, there must be others. Whoosh, whoosh. As expected, 2 more figures soon appeared in his field of vision. Fengzi, Lu Xuan. Seeing the 2 familiar figures, Ouyang-hai said in a low voice, could it be that the 2 of you were also invited by father? Emperor too. Fengzi's reply to Ouyang Hai's low shout was very simple. It was only the word idiot. 3 Hall Yang Feng 2 Feng Hall was. At this moment, Fengzi was in a fit of anger. Ouyang Hai had offended him, so he naturally wouldn't give Ouyang Hai any face. Ever since Ning Yu left Chenyuan Tower, Fengzi brought Lu Wei, Xiao Yu and the rest to Danwu College. Unexpectedly, halfway through their journey, Fengzi and the others were stopped by a martial artist of intermediate yin-yang stage sent by Ouyang Ba. The intermediate yin-yang state martial artist did not waste any time and said that the emperor wanted Fengzi and Lu Wei to go to the guest hall. Fengzi was helpless against an intermediate yin-yang state martial artist and could only be brought to the palace with Lu Wei. What? How dare you call me an idiot? Ouyang Hai's eyes widened when he heard Fengzi. Bao Ming, Tai Sheng, teach him a lesson. Ouyang Hai was not stupid. He knew that he was no match for Fengzi, so he asked Bao Ming and Tai Sheng to do it. Bao Ming was at the late primal core stage while Tai Sheng was at the peak of the primal core stage. To Ouyang Hai, the two of them should be able to defeat Fengzi easily. Understood. Bao Ming and Tai Sheng had always followed Ouyang Hai's lead. Now that Ouyang Hai had a request, they would not reject it. Whoosh, whoosh. In the next moment, Bao Ming and Tai Sheng gathered their yuan qi on their fists and rushed towards Fengzi. Fengzi, be careful. Lu Wei shouted when she saw the 2 powerful martial artists attacking Fengzi together. Don't worry, they're just 2 clowns, Fengzi said calmly, not taking Bao Ming seriously. Calling us clowns is not ooh-ah. Bao Ming was furious. No matter what, he was a late primal core martial artist. How could he be called a clown by Fengzi? An aunt could tolerate it, but an uncle could not. Smack. However, before Bao Ming could finish his sentence, he let out a scream. Then, Fengzi dashed out quickly and slapped him on the cheek. You dare to hit me? Bao Ming shouted as he held his injured cheek. Not only did I dare to hit you, if you don't get lost, I will kill you. Fengzi said in a low voice. Brat, you want to kill Bao Ming without asking for my permission. Tai Sheng was 1 level higher than Bao Ming and was at the peak of the primal core stage. He turned into a shadow and appeared in front of Fengzi in the blink of an eye. Smack 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 smack. However, Tai Sheng's ending was much more miserable than Bao Ming's. Fengzi only slapped Bao Ming once, but he received countless slaps from Tai Sheng. Several palm prints could be clearly seen on Tai Sheng's face, and traces of fresh blood flowed from his face. Fengzi, this is the Imperial Palace. You dare to behave atrociously? Ouyang Hai did not expect Bao Ming and Tai Sheng to be defeated so quickly and immediately shouted. It's not that I dare to behave atrociously, it's your 2 dogs who are behaving atrociously. After easily defeating Bao Ming and Tai Sheng, Fengzi said indifferently, like dog, like master. This saying is definitely not wrong. Fart. Hearing Fengzi's words, Lu Wei could not help but laugh. Fengzi's intention was very obvious. He called Ouyang Hai a dog. I'm so angry, I want. Ouyang Hai was not stupid. He could naturally hear the meaning behind Fengzi's words. However, before his voice could fade, 2 figures swiftly appeared from the distance. Swish, swish. Feeling the powerful aura emitted from one of the figures, Ouyang Hai swallowed the words that were about to come out of his mouth. Lu Wei. These 2 figures were Ning Yu and Ouyang Ba. As soon as he landed, Ning Yu saw a familiar figure. Lu Wei. Your Majesty, did you call Lu Wei and Fengzi over to celebrate with them? Ning Yu took a deep breath and tried hard to calm himself down. Immediately, Ning Yu turned to Ouyang Ba and said, if I'm not wrong, Lu Wei and Fengzi's cultivation have not increased. Isn't it a little unreasonable to call them over for this celebratory banquet? Haha, I definitely have my reasons for calling them over. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.